I love you, Ubumfa Crew.
Welcome back to the Ubumfa Pod. It's been a minute since we've talked about movies, and so what a better occasion to get back together and have a good talk than the release of Madam Web.
It's so true.
Right.
It's what this episode is going to be about.
Yeah, we definitely just blocked out 2 hours to really dive into Madam Web.
Morbius for her.
oh,
oh,
oh man.
no, but yeah, no, we're 3 months into 2024, which is about the perfect time to start talking about movies from 2023. We saw and talked about a lot of movies, the previous year from 2022 and 2023, and we tried our best to reduce that number this year, and our success, I think, was mostly limited. So, still a lot of movies to talk about. Um, with me today, I'm very rude of me. With me today, I'm joined by Josh, Andrew, Sam, and then of course me, Zach. Uh, and Josh has been crunching the numbers. He's been taking all of our rankings of the movies that we saw this year, every single movie, tens and tens of them, and he crunched the numbers and he figured out what is the objective ranking of
Yeah,
all the
it's
movies we saw.
objective.
Yeah, no, I mean it's a computer did it, so I mean that's like no bias.
It's just numbers.
It's
Quantitative
just
measurement.
it's mathematics.
Yeah,
It's ones and
so
zeros.
I'll explain how this works. So basically, all four of us made our own ranks of every movie we saw in 2023. Put it all together, ranked them from top to bottom, uh, which is no easy task. But then what I did was I went through every single person's list. I counted up all of the movies that at least three of us saw, so 3 out of 4. Removed any movie from everyone's list if it did not reach that threshold, and then chopped off everyone's rank to the smallest ballot size. So some of us saw a lot more than others. So in this case, Sam saw the least, which was 34. So I took everyone's ranks with all the unqualified movies removed, and then removed all the movies below 34 on everyone's ballot. And on each ballot, basically, last place gets 1 point, and first place gets 34 points based on how many there are. Because there's 34 in each ballot. First place gets 34, second gets 33, third gets 32, and so on. Then we added them all up. And so this was pretty much the best way we could figure out how to rank them all. There is no real optimal way to combine rankings, especially of rankings that have different movies in them and some don't include. So this is the best solution that I figured to do it. And it's also fun. So I'll start off with some stats. So we had 4 ballots. Smallest ballot was 34. We had 51 total movies that appeared on ballots. 43 did not qualify because only 1 or 2 people saw them, for a total of 94 movies that we all saw in 2023.
That's
Golly.
a lot. That's a lot.
So I
Goddamn.
can start off with the disqualified movies. We're going to run through them really quick. Some of them are worth talking about, but we're going to have to skip over them. Some of them are not worth talking about. We're going to have to fly through these just because there's a lot of them.
Yes.
And so the disqualified ones aren't in any particular order. They're kind of in an order, but I didn't sort them in any way. So I'll start from the bottom. First movie that we're going to talk about in this podcast is Sound of Freedom. I saw it. Next movie. Next movie is
Thank God.
Shazam! Fury of the Gods.
Oh yeah.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Wait, who
movie.
saw that?
Actually, I saw it and Sam saw it, right?
No, I don't think I did.
Oh, you didn't? All right, never mind. It was me. I saw it on a plane. Audio muted. Uh, Evil Dead Rise. Didn't
You
like
saw
it.
that.
Not did not go up to the expectations. Fist of the Condor. Action movie. Marcos Roar's in it. He's in John Wick 4. Pretty good. Wish there was more action. Equalizer 3. Pretty good.
Mm.
Sick. The horror movie about COVID. Pretty good. Blackberry. Pretty funny. Mad Fate.
Waterloo.
Soy Chang. Pretty cool movie. That's one that we might be able to talk about later in a possible wrap up pod.
Yes, please.
Kane Mutiny Court Martial. That's pretty good. Just a good, engaging court drama by William Friedkin's last movie. Pretty good. And I saw all those. The End We Start From.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Andrew and I saw that. It was okay.
It was okay.
It was okay.
You Hurt My Feelings.
Oh, yeah, I saw that. It was fine.
No Hard Feelings.
Better than the other Feelings movie.
The
Funnier.
Goldfinger.
I'm glad that I got to see that one at the theater.
Ballerina.
It's also good.
Teacher's Lounge.
That I think this is maybe the biggest omission from everybody's list in a way, in terms of one I only saw. That was great.
Ant-Man and the Wasp. Quantumania.
Oh, yeah, I did see that. It's S.
Yep. Fast X.
It's. My only thought is that if it was a 90-minute film, it could have been okay, but because it's like 2 hours or whatever, it's bad.
The Venture Brothers. Radiant is the Blood of the Baboon Heart.
It's not the creator's fault that they had to cram an entire season into like one direct-to-streaming film, but it's ass.
Renfield.
If you choose to watch it as like a 2012 YOLO motivational poster Tumblr era period piece, then it's enjoyable. Otherwise, it's S.
That's
Nick Cage is good though.
To be expected.
Yes.
Naiad.
I think the movie is not very good, and I don't understand. Like, if Jodie Foster and Annette Bening gave good performances, they were lost in the edit, in the direction, because I don't think the performances are particularly good, and so both of their nominations in Oscars, I think, are taking up valuable slots that should be devoted to better performances and better movies.
I see. Sisu.
Fun B movie.
Of an Age.
It's pretty good. It makes reference early on to Happy Together. Is just basically a big neon sign that says, "We really like Happy Together. This is like kind of like that."
Origin.
Pretty interesting, I guess, if you're like interested in getting into more academic stuff with like the conversations around race and class in the world in America. But otherwise, it's like kind of a tough watch.
All right, so those are all the ones that only one of us saw. So now we're moving on to the twos. Talk to Me. Pretty scary. Good movie.
Rocky.
It was pretty scary. I was sitting there and I was like, holy moly. Like, what did I get myself into? It was pretty good.
Kind of wish I had saw that one.
Yeah. Last Voyage of the Demeter.
Underrated.
Good concept. Pretty solidly done.
Wish I had seen it.
Yep.
Unique. This might be one of my highest ranking movies. Not the highest, but one of the highest I had that did not make the final ballot. Just a, funny movie.
Yep. It was very funny.
Quentin Dupieux is probably he's my top guy. I'll say that. Air. Yeah, it was funny.
Yep. Very funny. Good performances. Nothing to not like in Air.
Yeah, just solid movie. Dream Scenario. Yeah, funny.
Yep.
Nick Cage, good.
Yep.
As is typical.
Cage good.
Yep.
And here we go. The Sweet East. This one was very high on my list. We might touch on this more later, so I'm just gonna
Another one I
skip
really
over it.
regret not catching. It seems really good.
Yeah, and that came in late because it only released for video on demand very late, so is what it is. Polite Society.
It was our viewing experience was interrupted by evacuation alarm that was accidentally tripped off at the theater. But I thought the action was pretty good. It's not my favorite thing ever, but I thought it was pretty good.
It's fun enough. I thought.
Expendables 4. It's garbage. We can move
Shit
on.
was dog shit.
Wonka. Timothée Chalamet's pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, it's
kid's
like
movie.
it's a very mid movie, and it's like one of those movies where it's like it walks that line where like you can't just like rail against it for being bad, but there's also I don't think that much that's worthy of praise. In the movie.
Creed 3, pretty good.
It's pretty good.
I think it's better than the second one. I don't remember anything about the second one though.
I think the second one had I would say maybe like the story was maybe a little bit more interesting, than the third one. But I mean, I think the Jonathan Majors performance in the third one, as well as like the way they approach the boxing sequences, I think has a lot more to add
Yep.
than maybe the second one does.
Sanctuary.
Horny movie.
Yeah, fun little horny movie shot in one room.
Yeah,
Good
it's pretty
performances.
good.
I had a great time. I saw it by myself in the theater, which was
classic duo.
optimal. Yes, yeah, it is a classic duo.
Emily.
That's good. That's a good movie.
It's like an underrated movie, I think.
Underrated. I would say that. It's
Like really
really
excited
well
to
done.
see where the director goes like next.
Yeah.
The Royal Hotel.
Also good.
Also a good movie.
Yeah, it was a good follow up. Andrew, did you end up seeing The Accountant? Or not The
No,
Accountant?
I never did watch
assistant?
it. The Assistant, no,
Yeah,
I didn't.
it's very similar in tone. Yeah,
Shortcomings.
I really like Shortcomings. This was one that's aged well for me.
Yep, I agree.
Remember, really, it's kind of. I think it's an adaptation of a comic book or something, a graphic novel or something.
Yep.
But I
Yeah.
really like the lead performance. I forget his name. He's an After Gang. But yeah,
Yep.
it's good.
Good direction from Randall Park, I think,
That's right.
as well.
Yeah, and we are getting into notable exclusions territory. Return to Seoul.
Oh, I think
Yeah.
this is like an excellent movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I
it was
wish
really,
I
really
got it.
interesting.
Yeah,
Another
just missed
really
out on
good
it.
directorial debut. I mean, I don't think it's his debut, but it was, his big movie, and it's great. Another breakout performance in that one too.
Mm-hmm. No, I'd agree.
American Fiction.
It's a weird movie to almost talk about. I think it's really good. I don't know if it's worthy of all the Oscar praise it's getting, but I think it's really funny. And I think it hits all the comedic and emotional beats really well, balances different tones really well. I don't know if the like satire commentary is necessarily great, but
I
an
agree.
enjoyable watch.
Yep.
Suzume.
This was like one of my favorites of the year for a while, and then all the really, really, really good stuff just kept coming out.
It's definitely
Um,
more of a good follow up to Your Name than Weathering with You was. We very much agree on that.
It's exactly what I was about to say. Is that we like got another good movie from Shinkai, which is great. I think it's maybe his best.
We've got All of Us Strangers.
I bawled my eyes out for like the entire runtime. And I think that's like the main. It's a great performances. It's a pretty like interesting concept that's pretty well executed. But I think there's also pieces of how it's executed that are like kind of unnecessary or just kind of makes it feel like a weird sort of movie. That's sort of I don't know.
I agree.
Like all like the psychological thriller elements to it, just feel like kind of forced in there for no reason.
Yep. I also like, for me personally, I feel like it just like not entirely, but it like falls apart a little bit at the end for me.
Yeah, I don't love the ending. I
I
don't
don't
know.
think it's stuck to landing.
No, I would agree with that.
I think if it did, I would have had it like much higher in my rankings.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Showing Up.
Oh, great movie. I loved it.
One
Yeah,
of those I saw the trailer for, and I was kind of like, eh.
Yeah,
And
same.
then you watched it, and you liked it a lot, so I watched it, and I was like, wow, this is great.
Yeah, it's really good. Yeah, the director, I forget her name, but yeah, she has kind of like this.
Kelly
She's known
Reichardt.
for Kelly Reichardt has like known for this like minimalist approach, which is generally what I tend to really resonate with that, and I don't know, just a lot of really nice, subtle performances, very real, kind of portrayal of people being sort of nasty to each other in the way that we all kind of usually are.
Yep.
All right, and the final movie that did not qualify to make the final ballot, Past Lives.
Oh,
That's people
it's
are-
so wild. It's like
sound
really
off in
great.
the comments if that pisses you off. Yeah, it's really good. It's really, really well done.
It seems lovely.
So
Yeah,
great directorial debut. A lot of style, and Greta Lee is fantastic in it.
yeah. I mean, I think me and Andrew both spoke to like it's like it kind of starts off with the two characters being kids, and then it kind of jumps into them being older. There's this like middle phase where they're like trying to reconnect via Skype, and like I guess what would be like the 2010s.
Yep.
And it's like it was very nostalgic in that sense, whereas like
Yeah.
I a lot of Skype use in my childhood and middle years. So
Same.
Me too. It's like very powerful. Just a powerful movie.
Felt very grounded, you know.
Yep.
All right. So we just went through all the movies that were only seen by 2 or less people. Now everything here, we have a minimum 3 of us have seen it. There are 51 total movies where 3 of us seen it. Due to the way the ballots work, sometimes because the ballots are cut off based on the smallest one, some movies don't get any points because they were cut off. And those 2
Yep.
movies for us were Eileen and Bottoms.
Mm.
That's
Interesting.
the other one I was thinking of catching at some point and just didn't. Bottoms, co-starring Marshawn Lynch.
So true.
It's the best performance in the movie, I think.
Yeah,
I'm
I
allowed
found
to say
Bottoms to be very. I think you're allowed to say it. I mean, you might get accused of all kinds of things for saying it, but I'm fine with it.
Well,
Thought it was very funny. Personally, I had a very good time with the humor. I don't think it's like, again, like a great story. Again, it's hard with comedies. Usually when I go into a comedy, it's like if it made me laugh consistently, good job. So I ranked it relatively high, I guess.
I think it's like mostly funny. I think it's sometimes occasionally insanely unfunny.
Yeah.
Which is like what I struggled with. It's like some of the jokes I just thought were like horrendous. But at the same time, like some of them were very funny, like you said. I don't know, it's like
Yeah.
it's a fine movie. I don't really have any problems with it.
Kind of, yeah, similar with Eileen.
Yep.
Yeah, and
I think
Just
Eileen just
to-
like takes a turn for the worst. It's another one of those movies that doesn't stick
Yeah,
its landing.
I think
Mhm.
the story was, or the source material was probably just not good enough because
Mhm.
it's like compellingly made, but the
Yes.
story is just, once the events happen, you're like, oh, interesting. Oh, that's it.
Yeah, it just
Yeah.
ends.
They're just you just expect more is really how it is in the trailer. I think was like, oh, this seems like there's going to be a lot going on. It's going to be kind of twisty turny, but it's like there's like 2 twists and turns.
Yep.
Yep.
It's like you imagine that roller coaster. You're like, oh, this is going to be a decent roller coaster. And it's like, whoop, loop de doop.
Really good
one hill.
score though. It's like one of
The
the
score is
better
great.
scores of the
Yeah.
year, I think, for me.
Also looked very good. Obviously, I thought the direction in general was good. Like you said, Josh, it just doesn't seem like there was a whole lot to draw from to give it some meat.
Yep. So, just due to the nature of this, because the smallest ballot is where the cutoff is. Where some movies here you're gonna be like, really, this is ranked above Bottoms and Eileen. Gotta keep in mind, just the way this is done. 49. So this is our lowest ranked movie that actually earned points. Was Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny.
Shit
Uh,
is fucking pook
This is
dog
the
shit
worst.
ass.
This is the worst movie of 2023.
I think that was like second lowest on my overall like list.
Yeah, I
Bottom.
think it's so on everyone's list, it was 67 out of 68 on Zach, 38 out of 39 on Sam's, 74 out of 74 on Andrew's, and 62 out of 65 on mine. So it was panned across the board. Just
The critics have spoken.
very, very little to praise. It is what it is. I think we don't want this to drag down the podcast.
No,
It's
if
terrible.
I start, I won't stop. Is the problem? As
Yeah.
the person
Yeah.
who grew up with the Indiana Jones movies, as some of my favorite movies of all time, and having gotten to rewatch them leading up to this, yeah, just a complete misfire. Just way off track, more off track than I ever thought James Mangold in the studio would allow this shit to go. So
And this is the only thing I'll say is like we went and watched Crystal Skull, which I had like never seen. And everybody hates Crystal Skull. And you go back and watch that and you're like, one, it's literally just straight up good.
Yeah.
I'd argue
Yep.
great.
Literally.
It's also just a world of difference from this Dial of Destiny movie. It's better in every single conceivable way than this
Yeah.
movie is.
yes. Also, John, maybe I shouldn't say this, but God bless you, John Williams. This was not your year to get an Oscar nomination. Sorry.
Nope,
Sorry.
absolutely not.
I think my one and only Dial of Destiny thought is that I guess I don't think Mads Mikkelsen is horrible, but
Never is.
that's it.
Yep.
That's it.
It's pretty
That's
much
all I got.
Waste of
Wasted.
talent. as
Wasted.
usual.
Yeah, that's the best way to put it. It's just wasted.
All right,
Yep.
coming in at number 48, 65.
Oh yeah.
It's
I have nothing to
watchable.
say.
That's all
Yeah.
you can really say about it. It is watchable.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. One thing I'll say is, Zach, you put it at 66. I think you should have bumped it up just one. Just my opinion.
You're
So
right.
true.
I'll
So
own that one.
true.
That's my bad. I'm looking at this list. I was like, oh, is the next one going to be 65? Oh, yeah, we're just going down the list.
47 is Infinity Pool.
It's not that
Really,
bad.
it's
It's
interesting.
a frustrating movie.
This would be way higher if he had not already done Possessor. I think
Yeah.
that's what drags it down, is because all the good stuff with Infinity Pool he already did in Possessor and better. So it just
Way
feels
better.
like a weak follow up.
I think we're all sick of
Which-
Mia Goth, too.
Yeah,
We're all kind of landed there.
I'm kind of done with Mia Goth.
He needs to find a different bit.
My feeling about Infinity Pool is that I enjoyed the first half a lot, and then the second half is like the only thing about it that I found really interesting was Mia Goth, but I'm also just not a massive fan, so it's just like, eh.
It's like,
Yep.
yeah, he knows how to direct a trippy sequence, like in a really interesting way, but that's like the only interesting stuff about the second part of the movie. I kind of agree. Build up is a lot more interesting.
All right, coming in at 46, we have Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom.
Oh baby.
Oh yeah.
Totally,
As yeah.
totally fine, enjoyable enough.
Yep.
Yeah, it's not that good, but it
No.
is at least there's some good moments. There's not too many moments where like Jesus Christ, this sucks. Mediocre.
I've talked about this a bit, but yeah, I mean, I think what I liked about it was that felt like it was. I'm glad James Wan came back to do it. It felt like there was a consistency between the first one and the second one as far as the approach. And I've described it as like big budget Saturday morning cartoon, where it's just like you're getting like a nice big budget episode of a cartoon where there's a hero, a recurring villain that's that needs to be foiled. There's an environmental message, some fun adventure romps, goofy jokes. It's like, to me, it's perfectly inoffensive.
Yeah.
And I've said I would be fine with like 100 more of these just coming out with James Wan doing them, to just go and see them and then never think about it again.
Yep, but it's all over.
It's all over. The last
Yeah.
cockroach has been eaten.
All right, coming in at 45, we have Guardians of the Galaxy 3. This is kind of this low just due to the circumstances of the way this works. It's
Mhm.
good,
Mm-hmm.
it's funny, and we
Yes.
are just like Aquaman. It's over. We're done with
Yeah.
it. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
I feel like any of those superhero movies where it's going to be the last of its kind, either of its franchise or of like the entirety of the DCEU or whatever in a way, it's like if it's just okay, then it's inevitably going to be rated lower than maybe is fair, just because it's like that's it, that's the end.
Yeah, it's just, and we've talked about it like quite a bit. It's just a lot It's pretty emotionally imbalanced compared to, or tonally imbalanced compared to the other two, in ways that really drag it down.
It's fair.
Just like bashing you over the head with
It's
sadness.
over. Cry, cry about it that it's sad and it's over.
It's like, give me a bit of a break here. Like,
Yeah,
can
we'll
I catch a breather?
See
It's
what
like you
Gunn
don't
does
get
with
to.
Superman.
All
Yep.
right, at 44, we have Napoleon. Again,
Yeah.
One of the most
It's-
frustrating movies of the year.
yeah, very
I think.
frustrating. Action's all good.
Mhm.
It
it's
does have
great.
funny moments.
Yeah.
But I think it should have leaned way more into being, like funny or like a sort of a play on Napoleon rather than sort
Yes.
of being this weird sort of mix of serious and it's like a serious sort of like character study of him. Just didn't quite
Mhm.
land perfectly.
It's just
Yeah.
like trying to do a bunch of different things, and like I think it does many of those things well, but they just don't work well together. Like I've said that my favorite part of the movie is like the stuff that Vanessa Kirby is in, but I also think it's like just is the stuff that doesn't work the most
Yep.
in this movie. It's like, I don't know, that's a pretty big problem.
Yeah, and to your point, Josh, I feel like my favorite scene in the movie, in hindsight, is the scene where he needs to come back to France and like win over his troops again, and he has that little speech where he's like, "Boys, I missed you. I missed fighting with you. I missed going into the deep with you," and they're all like, "I miss you too, man." And it's like it works. It's like it's beautiful. It's like it's the best shit in the movie, and they should have really leaned into just this kind of like caricature of Napoleon and making it kind of goofy.
Yeah,
My
unfortunately.
only thoughts is that I was gonna see it, and then I heard you three talk about it, and then I didn't see it.
We were
yeah.
excited for it. We were very
I would,
excited.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah.
Ridley
I
Scott
know.
also like just I don't know, man, get some lights on set.
Yeah,
like-
the unfortunate thing is that Ridley Scott is English and probably not the right person to portray Napoleon. He probably should have gotten a
The French hated that
French
shit, didn't
Ridley
they?
Scott. Yeah, the French, I suppose.
Did not like it.
Anyway, moving
Yeah.
on. 43 is 80 for Brady.
All right, now we're
Oh
talking.
yeah,
This is a good
we
movie.
had a football movie.
It's a
football
football
movie.
movie, and
Thank
it's
God.
good. It's funny.
I mentioned before, but I knocked off a few points because of the weird TikTok dance that they did in the beginning of the screening. That kind of
Why'd
like
they do
wigged me
it?
out a little.
It was
But
like
once we got
5
past
minutes
that,
long.
it was perfectly fine and it was funny.
Yes.
I feel
it
like I
was
could show it to any of my non-football friends and they would like it too.
Another Marshawn Lynch movie in 2023,
So true.
even though it's more fleeting.
It's nice to see something that was like uncynical
Yep.
and pretty genuine with like the friendship that they were trying to portray. Like I don't know, it's like where it was like respectful in ways that
Yeah.
you don't normally see something like this be.
Yep.
All right, so we got a milestone here. This is the first movie that qualified on 2 ballots. And coming in at 42 is Silent Night.
Yes.
Oh.
It placed on Zach and Andrew's ballot. Interestingly, did not place on mine.
I had a good time.
Yeah, I had a good time with it. It's very angry. It's a very angry movie.
Oh yeah.
I think obviously could have been a lot better. I guess disappointing for John Woo, but I feel like you can't really expect John Woo to be given such a great budget or great task for his
Yeah.
first American movie.
I was happy to just get any amount of John Woo, I think was how I felt. I was like sitting down just excited to see something with like good action in it. And like, you know, we
Yep.
talked like the first half of the movie is like all set up and the second half of the movie is more of the action piece. But I don't know, it's just a very competently directed, like streamlined action movie. I think what's his face? Keep forgetting his name.
Joel Kinnaman.
Joel Kinnaman. I think he's excellent in the movie. It's like the movie the whole time I was like, well, this guy just needs to be in everything. And stop giving him like RoboCop and shit, like Suicide Squad. Give him like actual good movies.
Yep. I mean, and once you hit that, second half where you're actually getting the action, it is pretty sweet. It just really, it takes way too long to get there.
Yep.
I think that's the biggest problem with the entire movie.
Mm-hmm.
Just like an insanely long amount of time spent building that up
All
for
right.
not really that good of a reason.
Coming in at 41, we have him Threegan. Megan.
Damn.
Oh,
First movie I think many of us saw in the theater in 2023.
it was number 1 on my list for a long time.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
It's funny. I think it's perfectly funny.
It's a, I don't know, entertaining, like you said, funny movie. It's like a pretty decent idea. And I feel like they don't take it too seriously, just like why it works.
Yeah, I think it's to its benefit.
I imagine like that rated R cut that people talked about that came out is probably a little better. But I wasn't impressed enough with Megan to, go home and watch it again or anything. But it's a good movie.
All right, so at 40, we have Super Mario Bros. Movie.
Biggest surprise of the year for me.
I was surprised.
I went in. Many of us did. The marketing for this movie was terrible. We've all kind of talked about that. And going into it, I thought it was going to be trash. I was not excited to see it. And then I watched it, and the Mario lover. What this movie does very well is it's made for people who love Mario, and it's made
Yep.
for kids.
Yep.
And it knocks both of those things out of the park. It actually like captures what people like about Mario and makes it the focus of the movie, which is pretty impressive. And it
I
looks
like
great.
that it's charming, looks good, and it's not overcomplicated. They don't try for like a
Yep.
convoluted plot or anything. It's just solid.
Also features what might be the best original song of 2023.
Peaches, 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 peaches.
All right, coming in at 39 is another milestone. So give every little icon on this a color. So if it places in a top third, you get green. Middle third, it's yellow. Bottom third, it's red. And this is our
Yeah,
first
you
one
too.
that appears a yellow. And this is Operation Fortune Ruse the Air.
Yes,
Oh.
sir.
Placed into yellow on Sam's ballot.
Really? I
Nice.
feel like I liked it so much more than that. I just had to put it somewhere.
Yep.
It's so much fun.
This is kind of a funny one for me to squeeze in at the very end.
I forgot you
squeeze
didn't
it in.
see it.
Yeah, because I wanted to, but didn't happen. So I had to squeeze it in. I do think it's the lesser of the two Guy Ritchies.
I agree.
I
But-
also agree.
It's and when you got like a cast like that and Guy Ritchie, I mean, it's just enjoyable, even if it's not the most Guy Ritchie of Guy Ritchie movies.
I just thought it was funny.
Yep,
It's
it is
very
funny.
Very
funny.
funny.
And
Hugh Grant is doing a lot of the heavy lifting.
I just
This one.
like I don't know. I'm still struggling with Aubrey Plaza. She just has not won me over in anything that she's been in
Yep.
Me
recently.
neither.
I just that's all I'm gonna say.
All right, going in at 38 is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: Mutant Mayhem.
I got some thoughts on this one. I think
Go for it.
I went in afraid that it was gonna be like Spider-Verse ripoff because of the visual look and the tone of the trailers, and it's not. I like that it both has like a very unique art style, but it's also very distinct from how Spider-Verse look. It looks honestly, if you like pay attention to it, like it's drawn in crayon. Like it looks like it's a children's picture book almost.
Yeah.
And I think that it's good. I think that's a perfectly charming, funny, probably more relatable to young kids right now kind of approach to TMNT than I've seen before. I think my biggest criticism is that all of the cultural references that they joked about in the movie were dated when it came out, probably because it was delayed a little bit due to the pandemic and all that. But it comes out last year, and they're making jokes about like BTS's Butter, which is already like 2 years old or something by the time it came out, and it's only gonna age worse with time. That's like the thing that I worry about. It's just not gonna age very well.
It's the double-edged sword of their approach because
Yep.
there's much has been made of like how they got the all the kid voice actors in like the booth together and they all just like riffed
Yeah.
and they just recorded that, and that makes the characters, I think, very endearing, and their interactions
Yep.
feel very real
Yeah,
because they
I
are.
think that was very
like,
good.
Yes, but like you're saying, they're gonna make references to things that are immediately dated by the time the movie comes out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
tough.
It's a great score. They got Trent Reznor and
That's
Atticus
true.
Ross on this thing. And it's like at times you're just like watching this and you're like, damn, this Turtles movie is going hard.
Yeah,
And-
literally.
I am excited for seemingly the second one that they'll hopefully make. Like think it'll be just like probably better than this one.
Probably.
I think it's only
I
up
look
from
forward
here.
to it. I look forward to
Yep.
it.
All right, next one is a milestone. It's the first one that placed on 3 ballots, and it is the other Guy Ritchie, The Covenant.
This
This
was very
this
good.
is a great movie.
Yeah, great movie.
Yep. Very, very, very well done. So
Can't
I
wait to
love
see it.
It's I'd say it's important for the viewers to understand, because I'll show this in the actual final video. But it places in the red on all 3 of our ballots. Sam didn't see it, but it's important to understand that a lot of good movies come out, so that just means it's low. It doesn't mean it's bad. Just
No.
means it's low in the overall ranking, because we're
Left
getting
it.
into that territory now.
We left the bad movies behind a while ago.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Gyllenhaal is good in everything that he's in. But I would love to hear if he's marked safe from the Rebecca Ferguson mob. But
He
my
he won't be.
no,
with
he
his,
won't.
No.
But the performance of the interpreter from Dar Salim I thought was excellent. That was one of the
Yeah,
best
he's
performances
like
of the year.
amazing.
I think he was massively overlooked this year from people. Yeah. Very good story. Like just a solid, great story, obviously based on a true story.
Yeah, very, very engaging. All right. This next one. All right, this is the first one where there's been some disagreement here.
Oh boy.
Only placed on 1 ballot. It was mine.
Uh-huh.
I'll let that simmer if you guys can think of what you think it is. It
I
placed
knew
6.
what it was before you said it was only on yours.
Yeah.
So 61 out of 68 on Zach, 73 out of 74 on Andrews, and placed 16 out of 65 on mine. This is Master Gardener with Paul Schrader.
It's tough.
All right. It's the one thing I'll say is, as the subject matter of this, when you have a reformed skinhead, or it wasn't a skinhead exactly, but that type
Yeah,
of
neo-Nazi type thing, yeah.
thing. It really is. I think Paul Schrader is the only one who could have done this, because it takes like a genuine amount of empathy to be able to convey a character like that in in that kind of light. Anyone else would have either made it like, you should hate this guy always, just keep hating him, or someone would have been like, well, why are you making this guy such a nice guy? Like, don't you know what he was like dead? I think he was the only one who was able to thread that needle. And I do think I'm a big fan of these lower budget Paul Schrader, what he's able to do with such a low budget, in terms of the look of the movie and the like card counter especially was very interesting in that regard.
Yes.
But I know for me, Master Gardener just completely worked.
Yeah.
I can imagine why it does not.
My thing is like the themes and what he's going through and how it plays into this like trilogy that he's made. And obviously like a lot of his movies have a lot of overlap from my understanding. That stuff has sat with me better over time. What I remember of the filmmaking and the script has not. And I just like, people have said like Sigourney Weaver gives a great performance. I didn't see it that way.
I think she's terrible in this movie.
I thought Joel Edgerton did the best he could with what he was given, and I felt like what he was given was not good. Like, even if it's interesting things that Paul Schrader is writing, they're not written in a way that is very cinematic or that feels like, I don't know. And I don't remember, like, there's some I remember there being like some good cinematography in it speckled throughout, but as a whole, I don't remember it being as impressive as his other two efforts. But
because I'm a big fan of sort of the low budget look of movies. If you have someone who like has a brain behind it, then Master Gardener, I think, was a good example of that. Very simple, to the point, but with a good eye, from Schrader. We got another one coming up here. Not too much disagreement. Well, there is disagreement, but at 35 we have The Flash.
I have it ranked lower than I actually have negative feelings about it, is what I'll say.
Yeah, I had this the highest of anyone. I had a 24 out of 65.
Dang.
I have a 28 out of 39. But I also didn't dislike it. I think I mentioned yesterday that it was my favorite non-animated superhero film that I watched this year.
I think The Flash, I've had a lot to say about The Flash. I honestly think if you were to put a gun to my head and say, what is the most important movie of 2023? I would probably say The Flash. I'd say it was probably the most interesting movie of 2023.
I won't argue with you there.
I literally sat there for like hours a couple of days ago thinking, what am I going to say about The Flash? How am I going to make my point in this podcast? And I literally still cannot come up with the words. Outside of the fact that it's like actually funny and does have like a good sort of story with some emotion. Just the dynamics of the way the camera's moving and the CG and like the colors. It's baffling. There's nothing like it.
There's
like
nothing like it.
The Fortnite slide, the way the camera just like
that shit
slides around.
It's insane.
That shit was heat.
Like at the beginning, like whenever he goes into super speed mode, it's just interesting, and there's nothing else like it.
You like shift that super wide angle.
It's
like, with him as he moves. It's crazy.
It feels like an ambitious entry into the digital age.
Exactly.
A film in a way that like George Lucas in the prequels were, where it's like we're just gonna see what we can do with the digital camera and with CG with what we're doing, and also play around with obviously the superhero genre and what it's turned into. I think the whole opening sequence with saving the babies and put them in the microwave. I mean, put that shit in a museum. Like that shit is incredible.
It's good. It's funny.
So funny.
And the whole sequence, I forget what the hell you call whenever they go back in time and they have that weird spinny, like sphere or whatever they call it. All the stuff with like the AI in there, like the AI Nick Cage and the AI, like the original Flash and Christopher Reeve. People hated that so much. And it's
I feel that's probably one of the most polarizing things about the whole
100%. Which, like, I mean, you can call it artistically bankrupt, which is what makes it interesting. Very much just it's like, for me, it's undeniably just amazing to watch. It's shocking. I
If it
still
worked for
think
you, it
about it
worked
all
for
the
you.
time.
No, I understand. It makes sense. It makes sense.
It's I mean, superhero movie is what it is.
Yeah, that shit is buns.
But I do think this is. I won't go this far, but I'll make the comparison. It is very similar to the Wachowski Speed Racer.
Yeah, there you
In
go.
that it was
No, I think that's a good
sort of,
comparison.
yeah, it's just bold visual language, not quite as out there as Speed Racer, or maybe even as intentional as Speed Racer, but very much as close as equivalent in that sort of way.
Yeah.
Which, of course, Speed Racer is fucking incredible.
It is.
So I think it was nice to see Michael Keaton back, and it like seemed
Yeah.
like he was trying. Like
Yeah, he did a good job.
good in this movie.
Yeah.
And I will
I think
say, I do hope that they keep Andy Muschietti on as director for The Brave and the Bold. I hope they don't succumb to the backlash.
Mm.
I think my final flash thought is that just watching it the whole time, I thought Ezra Miller's so talented. It's just such a fucking shame.
Yep.
Yep.
That's my final thought.
True
man.
shame.
I hope
Big
he gets
shame.
the help he needs.
Well,
Yep.
we've been saying that. At 34, Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like anybody who's who like the visual style of Holdovers may also want to give Margaret a look. It's a very faithful adaptation of the kids' book, and if you've read it, then you already know what you're gonna get. But I thought it looked great, shot great, performances are great. I liked it.
Yep.
Is this the first adaptation of this into a movie?
I don't
really
know.
don't-
I think
Probably
so.
not.
It
Really?
might be.
Wow,
That's
that
where-
book's been
because
around
that's-
for so long.
That's what I was gonna say. That's where it's like, I'm glad this is out. Like, obviously, a book
It's
that
like-
was so probably valuable to generations of young girls, and I don't
Yeah.
know. It's cool that it's out, and it seems like it's probably still relevant in a lot of ways.
Yeah,
so,
it's still in all those public libraries.
yeah.
All right, 33, Knock at the Cabin.
He's got the juice. He's still got it.
He's still got it. He never lost it.
Nobody
Still got it.
No, well.
So
we don't
may-
even
so
gotta
well,
know that.
by comparison, I'm just saying other people have tried what he tried, and they did it worse. So
That's
I'll,
true.
I'll give him that.
Yeah,
I'll give him that.
That's
fair.
true.
I
I'm
like
just-
the way it's shot.
I'm happy to see Dave Bautista thriving.
He's a beast.
Oh, he's
He's a great-
incredible.
He's
in that.
great.
Great actor.
Great actor.
Yep.
Like he's got it.
Yep.
It's been clear since day one. He's really got it.
Mm-hmm. No, and it's just it's a type of dialogue, a type of visual style that is distinctly Shyamalan. Which gets, again, it's like if you're just going into it and have never been exposed to that before, you're gonna be like, this is really like clunky and blah 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 and weird, and it's like Shyamalan. It's just it's his style, it's his way of doing it, and you can kind of tune into it. It's pretty fun.
I've come around to Rupert Grint's Boston Irish thing. I didn't understand it at the time, but
Oh my god.
Josh, the Boston Irish cultural consultant, taught me a few things, and now I understand that actually is authentic. I was like, oh,
Yeah,
Interesting.
It's pretty decent. Yeah, good movie.
Yeah.
32, we have Priscilla.
Wow.
Yeah.
32.
Very,
It's
very
another really good movie, I
really
think.
good. Really good. No, I mean, I think it's one of those things where people immediately are like when it came out, there was a lot of like comparing to the Baz Luhrmann Elvis from a year ago and all blah blah blah. And it's like, you can have both perspectives exist simultaneously. It is okay. Like, we can like look at Elvis as this like towering figure that he was in culture, and then we can look at like, okay, this guy was just a guy in the end, and yeah, maybe didn't do things all too well in his personal life.
Yeah, Priscilla it's a beautiful love story about how two people came to love each other. It's that simple.
And then
No,
maybe
clearly
we should,
not.
Maybe we should get some distance. Maybe we should spend some time apart.
Yeah,
I think
and,
the Kaylee Spaney performance, like moving
Yeah.
from like starting at 14 and then getting older, and then obviously the way the production design and the costume design and hair and makeup all contribute to her development, is, I think, the highlight of the movie, along with Elordi.
I was gonna say I think Elordi as Elvis is like fantastic. Just wanna
he's got the
I'm not-
juice.
he
He
does have
does.
the juice, and
He's very juiced.
another good performance, another good movie this year. I guess we'll talk about later. Maybe, I don't know, but he's just great in like everything I've seen him in.
All right. So moving on to 31, we have a new milestone. This is the first movie that placed on everyone's ballot, and that is The
Nice.
Creator. I was a
Interesting.
little bit
Yeah.
surprised that it was this high. I mean, it's good. I liked it a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, just
Dream on.
I mean, it looks great. Action is good. I mean, the
Yep,
story
yeah.
is pretty much dog shit.
Yes.
Yeah, more or less.
Yeah.
But at the very least, it's not so overtly terrible where you're just like, oh, what a waste.
Perfectly inoffensive to where you are able to focus on the things that were clearly the focus of the direction.
Yeah, like there's so many cool little things like the robots. All the effects are so good.
Yep.
Looks great.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody's talking about Greg Fraser now, and like everybody should have been talking about him for like 10 years at this point. But
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, easily what he's doing, I think, is the best part of the entire movie by significant margins, better than everything else that's going on. He just looks
Scary,
absolutely
ominous
fantastic.
shit up in the sky.
So yeah, I just love the production design, like how they chose to do the designs of not just the robots, but like the whole big scanning machine thing, and then the way they anytime like a big bomb would be dropped or anything, it would just look so cool.
I feel like part of what
Yeah.
I feel like what part of what I appreciate about The Creator is not just all of that, but that in the context of how little money was actually spent on this thing.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a good point.
You see
Yeah,
the
like $80 million movie or something. Maybe
I
less than that. I don't remember.
I mentioned earlier
no.
the how much I just like sort of the low budget look. This is basically a low budget look. I think the camera they used was, I mean, it's $5,000 camera or something like that, so it's not cheap. But compared to the actual movie cameras they typically use in big budget movies, cost like tens, even $100,000 to use. And you can really tell that this camera was a little cheaper, a lot of grain, not as high resolution, a little fuzzy, which just completely adds to the look. Looks great. Yeah, I mean, that's The Creator. I think he's great. Gareth Edwards he's right. Gareth is
Yep.
perfect choice for the next Jurassic
Park
movie.
City or Jurassic World City or whatever we're
I think
doing.
it's just Jurassic City.
Jurassic City. That's okay.
It's a hard
So-
name. I'll give him that.
It's a hard name. I can't wait to see what it means. And I'm
Yeah.
sure they're in the process of figuring that out since they came up with the name and were like, "Oh, that's a hard name. Put it out. Put it out.
Yeah, I think it's
Figure it out what it means later."
It's a prequel to Zootopia.
Oh
No, that's Wish.
it.
That's Wish, Josh.
Oh,
That's
that's
right.
right. That's Wish.
That's Disney 100 anniversary special Wish that you're thinking.
Yeah,
Holy
that's-
shit, that was a 2023 movie.
Yeah,
Right?
I mean,
November, yeah.
it came in
Wow.
at number 1 on our list. Oh, spoilers.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
Number 30. We're in the top 30. Shin Kamen Rider.
Oh man. Oh,
Uh.
this movie slams.
in Hideki Anno we trust.
Yep.
Yeah, this,
Yeah.
it starts with a bang. The
It does.
Yes.
very, very violent in the first few scenes.
It's like
I think
incredibly, disgustingly violent. It's beautiful.
it kind of loses steam a little bit because part of the movie is he doesn't want to be violent, which like okay, whatever.
Sure.
So
Guess they have to do that.
it's not as gratuitous as I may have wanted. I don't have any preconception of the Kamen Rider character,
Nope.
No.
other
me
than what he
neither.
looks like.
Rides a motorcycle.
Yep.
Pretty cool.
But yeah, it's good.
Uh-huh.
Because I was never a. I mean, when I was younger, I was never watching, a lot of Japanese stuff, but I did watch Power Rangers, which of course comes,
Yeah.
from the Japanese, those things or whatever, which I
Yes.
always love. They just love guy in costume, beat up other guy in costume, or beat up guy in creature costume. Very cheap budget. That's all you need. I mean, that's movies. That's all you need.
Without jumping too far ahead, like to a different movie, with like wrestling, like it's I've been thinking about how much just like having actors being willing to just sell things, you know what I mean, like in that exaggerated way, is actually pretty compelling if you can tune into it instead of just pointing it and being like that looks fake.
Yep. All right. 29. We have Meg 2: The Trench.
Oh baby.
I was surprised at how high this ended up placing on my list. Uh, it was at 27 out of 65 for me. Uh, I think that the first half is pretty trash, but the second half is pure movie delight. So I had to give it the credit.
Yeah, it's a beautiful piece of cinema. That's how I feel. I've talked about I saw it in 3D. I feel very
Yep, so
strongly
did
that's
I.
how it's meant to be seen. I've talked about how like the opening sequence is like this like like, kind of chain food chain sequence where each there's a creature and then gets eaten by another creature and then another and then it finishes off with the Meg splashing out of the water, crunching these dinos, guts splatter at you. Meg to the trench comes up. Dun, 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 dun. It's like God, it's so fun. Yeah, mwah. It's and then everything else, all the dog shit like the 3D junk, the CG, having like the sharks that are like supposed to be controlled via this like beacon thing. It's a stupid movie, but it's so like again you have to be like very intelligent to be able to like come up with these stupid things and then choose the most stupid option, and then put it all together into a movie. And like Josh said, the whole like forget what the name of the beach is. Like the beach has a really funny like cheesy name like Fun Island or something.
Yeah, I think that's what it is.
And it's so good. It's like they just like set it up. It's like all these like all these like kids and families like just having fun on the beach, and you know that this shit is coming out of the trench because the fucking barrier or whatever is like opened and everything's coming out. And fucking Jason Statham impales sharks with a fucking helicopter blade. I don't know, man. It's great. It's a great movie. If you can, I mean, don't know if I'll ever watch it again if it's not in 3D, but the experience was A+.
All right, 28. We have Divinity.
Yes.
This movie is fairly difficult to talk about if you haven't seen it. Pretty
Yes.
crazy, black and white, strange story about some drug play. It's like a play on like bodybuilding and all that.
Yep.
They go crazy with the visuals. They're really trying to make a visual focused movie here.
Mm-hmm.
I do think it has the most inspired casting of the year with what's his face, Mike O'Hearn or whatever
Michael
his name
Hearn,
is.
yes.
Yeah.
Which I think that
Great.
made me lose my mind in the theater.
Yes, same.
Shocking that we got this in a theater.
Absolutely shocking.
Literally, yeah, that was shocking. And there were people in the theater. A few people showed up to see it.
There's one other person in my show.
Yeah, I had one other guy in the showing, and after it ended, I got out, or I was leaving, and he left a little bit before me. He just turns around and looks at me and goes, "Damn."
So true.
Yeah.
So true.
Yeah, just like an exercise in excess, in a beautiful way, and like I don't know, just a lot of interesting, different approaches to the visuals, willing to kind of mix media type approach.
Yep.
Which is really cool. Just seemed like a kind of like almost like a student project, like a bigger budget student project, where it's just like do what you want, like try your filmmaking shit out. And Soderbergh was like, yeah, just go have fun.
It's interesting because the Eddie Alcazar, I'm sorry, is like worked with like Brain Feeder and like Flying Lotus and like a lot of really interesting electronic music stuff. And just like those kind of approaches that you see from a lot of those guys like do stuff with like Adult Swim as well. I feel like it's all just like present here.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
pretty neat. It's like a cool movie that somehow, some way got made.
Yeah,
And
but
it's one of those where I also think it's just, bound to be like an actual cult classic, as in nobody saw this thing when it came out. Like eventually, and like, I don't know, 15, 20 years from now, people are going to talk about it and be like, look at this cool movie from 2023. Look at all this weird stuff it does.
not if this generation or the next generation can't get over their fear of sex scenes in movies.
Yeah, I guess that's true. This movie is all about just, everything, sex and drugs and violence and all that cool stuff. So
they cast a porn star or like 3 or something.
Yep.
They were in there.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right, 27. We have Society of the Snow. I was the highest on this one. I think that's just a great story. I just love stories of great bravery. It's just always
Yeah.
something I like to see, and that's um I mean they were up against the elements there
Indeed.
Yeah.
in
One
their little
specific
society.
element I can think of.
Yeah, snow.
When we were watching, I was saying, man, I just like the plane crashes. I just wish I shot out the back and didn't have to deal with any of
Yep,
this stuff.
just end me.
Like, don't make me go through what these fellas went through. There's no
Yeah.
way.
I think it was like just for me, like I think it is a really well done movie for both the subject matter and just the direction of the film, but it's also just like I didn't enjoy watching it,
Yeah.
and that's why it was ranked as low as it was for me, where I was just like
Yep.
I was done with it. Like I don't care if it has a vaguely happy ending, and it's about making meaning out of meaningless pain and all these different things that are really good, but it's also just like fuck, dude. Like Andrew said, like I know I'm not making it, so just like
Yeah.
the lesson in this is like they're built different. Good for them.
Yep. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
like
yeah.
it's just a gruesome watch. It's like
Yeah.
I'd never want to watch it again.
No.
But it is a like really good movie, really well done, well made.
Yeah.
All right. 26 Dungeons and Dragons: Honor Among Thieves.
Very pleasant surprise for me. I went
Yeah.
in not really knowing what to expect, but I just had a great time.
Yeah, very funny. Has some good, movie moments where you're not just hearing a bunch of jokes. You actually get some fun stuff you can only do in a movie, like the shenanigans with the portal thing.
Yes.
Another one where
Um,
Hugh Grant just shows up, riffs, and it works.
It's
Yep.
so true. It's a great cast all around. I mean, it's
Yep.
it is well
It
done.
is a
and,
great cast.
I mean, I guess yeah. Andrew, you've played Dungeons and Dragons.
Yep.
I've played Dungeons and Dragons. I don't know if Sam, if you have.
A bit.
I have a
bit.
little.
Yeah, it's like it also like I mean people have talked about it. It incorporates the D&D stuff very well, and not in
Yeah.
like an in your face way. In
Nope.
like a just like they actually thought about how do we adapt these sequences and make them D&D like.
They do a great job.
Where you can like literally like see these moments where like insert the intelligence check when those little brain creatures are walking by, or people talk about how like the final battle is literally done in like initiative order. I don't know, just cool stuff like that they didn't have to do, but they did. That
Kind of
just
similar
makes
to the Mario movie in that way, I think, where
it...
it's like if you're not looking for it or don't know about it, it's like you might not notice it at all. It's not
Yeah.
bashing you over the head with anything, but it's there for the real ones who know. Like same with all those little there's like I mean Mario is absolutely chock full of references, but there's like, even among that there's like little stuff that you might only notice if you played this little game or this little thing. It's like that in the D&D movie as well.
Yep.
All right.
Hope we get another one.
I
hope so,
I
too.
think we will after some point. They'll make something with the same
hope so.
creatives. All right, so moving into the top 25. I was surprised that I was the lowest on this one. Barbie.
Oh, funny, I thought I was going to be the lowest. Don't
I
get
feel
mad.
like Barbie's the most talked about movie of the whole year, so what is there
Yeah.
we could possibly say that hasn't already been said? I guess my only thoughts are I thought it was good. I thought it was funny. The car ad partway through kind of took me out of it a little.
Oh. It's terrible, especially like
the
I
whole thing's a
you know,
fucking ad. I don't know, man. That's-
Yeah.
saw it again, and like
Oh,
the
one
second
big
time
ad.
seeing it just like all the stuff that like I didn't really care about or didn't care for the first time just felt like much more grating watching it again.
Yeah.
It's like it's an ad that's wrapped in like the prerequisite course before you take Feminism 101. I don't know. It's just like I don't think it has anything that interesting to say into the conversation unless you've never talked about these things before. Like I just don't know, and I do think it's very funny. Ryan Gosling steals every scene that he's in.
Yep.
I think he holds this movie on his shoulders. Outside of just like obviously the production design, Gerwig's direction is great. But it's just like it's like when what was it? Was it the Golden Globes or something that handed out like an award for like box office success or something, and Barbie won it, and everybody's like, "But that's what the money's for." It's just
Yeah.
like you made $1 billion, you won, great. It's just like it
To
was
me-
a cool. Also, say it's a cool theater experience.
To me, I made peace with this feels like an intro to feminism 101 aspect with well, this is obviously a comedy first, and I kind of wouldn't want it to try and be any deeper than that for what tone it's trying to go for. And I feel like I've watched other movies this year that we'll certainly talk about later that
Yeah.
approach those topics in much greater depth.
Yeah.
But yeah, to me, it was just, it was pretty good.
Yeah, and that's just for me. It's just like that's a response to how other people are talking about the movie, rather than maybe just looking at the movie itself and what it's trying to be. So yeah, maybe I'm not being fair to it and what it was trying to do, but it was just it's very good. It's very good.
All right. 24, we have Maestro.
Oh baby,
Oh man, everybody hates this movie.
people
I
hate
missed this one. I
movie.
missed this one.
They hate Bradley Cooper. They hope he dies
Yeah, that weirdo
They're
dude.
praying for his downfall.
because
Yeah.
he made a movie.
What? Yeah, and he really likes Leonard Bernstein, and like that's just not okay for some reason.
He talked about how he thought he almost felt like he was meant to make this movie because he he would play conduct as a kid throughout his life, something he always did. And so when he had the chance to make this movie, he was like, oh, this is totally something I feel like I should make as a personal piece for myself, as well as something that honors Bernstein. And people were just clowning on him for caring. It's just how it
Yeah.
felt, for trying.
Yeah, why? Really?
Most directors you do the same shit. I just don't know what to tell you. And directors you don't like are bad because they don't try and they don't give a shit. It's just why? I don't know. And then people call it hollow, and there isn't anything to it. And it's just I just guess they didn't see it. That's my thing. It didn't resonate, didn't land with them. Fine. But it sounds like Cooper did the research and he came on the conclusion that it's a movie that should be about his marriage and his relationship to life and death and his role as an artist and his legacy, which is seems pretty interesting to me. I don't know.
Yep. It's also some really, really good sound design in this movie, especially in the theater. Just
Mhm.
I guess it's maybe it's easy when you have Bernstein's music, but
Oh yeah.
it's also an amazingly shot movie. It's beautiful,
Oh, yeah.
absolutely stunning looking.
Yeah.
And that's I think almost the thing that is most overlooked about this movie. Even the people that don't like it, it's can't tell me this thing didn't look amazing.
Yeah, I
just
don't get
gorgeous.
that.
All right.
Oh.
So at 23, I pretty high. A Haunting in Venice.
Shit slams.
It's
Yep.
it's good. It is a
Shit slams.
great time at the movies.
I love when they
Yep.
shove the camera directly in front of the main character's nostrils and you're just staring up.
The Apple bobbing POV cam is an inspired piece of direction.
It's crazy. It's literally key.
Well, and people were screenshotting that and posting it online talking about it was terrible, and it's first
Grow
did
up.
you grow up,
Yeah.
get over it. Did you not watch the scene too? Do you not know
No,
why
they
this happened? And you're right, they clearly didn't. So it's a
yeah.
really fun movie.
So yeah, really interesting blend of mystery and horror. Obviously, it's not a particularly scary movie, nor is it really trying to be, but
Yeah, it's like a cozy mystery.
it's a cozy mystery. Obviously, always the problem with adapting these Agatha Christie type mystery stuff is just hard to try to make the mystery part feel real without the audience jumping ahead. And obviously there's a couple pieces of clunky dialogue that we all noticed where we're why did they say that like that? And then you get to the movie, you're oh, that's why they said it like that. But I mean, Kenneth Branagh is just incredible actor, absolutely owns this role. He should play this role in every movie.
Yep.
Yeah, and he took this movie in the right direction, where you can just take Agatha Christie, Hercule Poirot stories, and put them in all different genres. Because at the end of the day, Agatha Christie was writing, almost 100 years ago, or decades ago. So a lot of the stuff that she did, if it was exciting at the time, we've seen a million movies that do the same twists. So if you want to actually have an exciting mystery, most of the mystery tricks have been done already. So you have to push it in a different direction, make it more exciting. He could have just kept making more of those movies that are same as the previous two, but he shook it up, and so I hope he keeps doing that for the next ones.
Yep. It's also a movie where it just like it was shot. I don't know. The camera operators and stuff were just like so inspired with what they were doing with the camera, how they were moving it, where they were putting it. It's like a crazy movie considering it's, another one of those movies where it's basically shot in like one place, like one building, one, I guess, mansion, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
But still, not a ton to work with in that regard, so they just make it, super interesting by putting the camera on the ceiling and shooting a point of view shot of Kenneth Branagh's mustache.
Hell yeah.
It's great.
All right, so moving on to 22, we have another milestone. This is the first appearance of a green icon. So this place is in the top third for someone. And also, everyone has a different color circle for this one. Kind of interesting. This is Monster. It placed on 8th on Zach's ballot, 18th on Andrew's, and 33rd on mine. And Sam did not see it.
I regretted not seeing it because I know it was the final score made by Ryuichi Sakamoto. Rest in peace. Oh my god.
Yep.
Still sad about that.
Ultimate tragedy. It's a great score. It's
Great
like
score.
Amazing score, one of the best of the whole year.
Yep.
It's funny because it's like not that high on my list, but I think this movie is like absolutely fantastic.
Yep.
As well.
Really well done.
I docked it a few points just when I was ranking. I was like, well, I'm going to put this one over this and this one over that.
Yeah.
Just because I thought the narrative was not so satisfying, just to not spoil anything or anything like that. I thought they should have focused more on the mom, which I think was a big criticism, is they kind of just stopped focusing on her, which is kind of the point of the movie, to show different perspectives. But I do think she was the best part, and I think that format sort of worked against it, despite being very good in every other respect.
Yeah, that's fair. I really liked the approach and the format. I think, yeah, these types of stories, whenever it's just like, I mean, part of it is it being about kids, and I think any movie that explores just the experience of being a child in the modern world is good, because it's something that I feel like is under talked about, and obviously kids just can't make like movies about themselves, so it's hard to do. But just like looking at the different perspectives on, like, I mean, we hear these stories on the news all the time. This happened, that happened, or you just hear it in your communities and things like that. And it's like, what really happened? What is this person's perspective? And I think there's just a really good universal message of empathy in there, and of just like, I don't know, the quick labels and different narratives that there's usually one narrative that'll end up dominating. It's like, there needs to be an openness to different ones. Yeah.
Yep. So following this, we have a bit of a tier break. So Monsters at 46 points. Next one's at 57.
Bang.
Damn.
21, we have Ferrari.
Yeah.
Enzo.
Yeah.
This was 20 on Zach, 29 on Sam, 22 on Andrew, and it was 12 on mine. This is my first green. I'm a Michael Mann head. I love Michael Mann.
True. He cooks.
I think this is a very Michael Mann story. It's a very Michael Mann movie. This type of story is just something I'll always just eat up. You can put it down in front of my face. It doesn't even have to be good, and I'll just watch it. Just about a guy really dedicated to a task, to deleterious ends. And I think the not knowing anything about the actual Enzo Ferrari, I think it is a compelling story. Every character is, an adult. There's nothing like, no story trickery going on. You just have, for the most part, strong characters, in there, to make a connection with the big line. No two objects can exist at the same point in space, same moment in time. That's pretty much the thesis of Michael Mann in general, is you have these people, these dudes who sort of isolate themselves from other people, hyper committed to a certain task, a certain interest, certain mode of life and the effects it has on their life. And
Yeah.
I think it's sort of like The Irishman for Michael Mann. It's sort of that end of
Yeah.
career capstone for his predominant themes, which I liked a lot.
I
So I
enjoyed
think,
some. Oh,
Go
sorry.
ahead. Go
I
ahead.
enjoyed so many parts of Ferrari. I loved, like you say, like the focus. Like I felt like easily the best parts of Ferrari were sequences like where Enzo is showing his son like how like illustrating like how an engine works, and you can just see like the sheer amount of like passion and kind of like even if you're not into cars at all, you just watch something like that and you're like,
Yeah.
holy
Yep.
shit, I get it. Or like any of the sequences where he's talking to any of the racers, like Portago, for example, about like the philosophy of racing itself and what it is that might compel somebody to devote their lives to this thing that will almost certainly take their life at some point,
Yep.
especially at that phase of like how racing works, and then despite that doing it anyways. And I wish that that was even more of the film than it was to me, and maybe that was just me missing the point, but I felt like the film at times over focused on the, I guess, the portrait of a broken marriage aspect of it, where you're seeing like, oh well, here's the fallout, here's how it's destroying his relationship with his equally kind of over focused wife, here's how like this is creating this massive like interpersonal like hell for him and his family. In a way, like I get it, but the way it was portrayed at times, and maybe this is juvenile of me, but it made me really want to get back to the cars. Like when we're getting to the final sequence where we're seeing like the final major race, and I'm not going to spoil how it goes, though anyone who's ever read it on Wikipedia
absolute-
knows.
oh.
It's like I love that whole like final third of the movie, and I wished it was even more of Ferrari than it was, because again, I just felt like it spent so much time with the relationship that I felt could have been scaled back a little bit. But that was my only real grief with it. Otherwise, I thought it was really cool.
Yeah.
Like
Andrew, you're
the
gonna-
single most shocking moment of 2023 is in this movie, I think.
It's an
Oh, yeah.
incredible
Especially if you
scene.
don't know. It's like absolutely unbelievable what happens at the end of it.
It's,
I also think Penelope Cruz is like one of the biggest just like snubs in general of the
So
entire
good.
year. This is one of the best performances of the entire year.
Yeah.
Her
I thought
as
she gave a
Laura.
fantastic performance. I know everything I just said about the relationship stuff, but I think that she
No.
acted the part really, really well.
She's incredible. I mean that scene at the start where they go to the grave and they each have their moment
Yep.
with their dead son is just
Yep.
they each. It's such a great setup for the rest of the movie.
Yep. I think she's like
It's
doing
beautiful.
this is not to discount Adam Driver, but she's like doing just as much as him in her scene, and she literally doesn't speak. Where
Yeah,
you know
it's-
Adam
it's
Driver
Beautiful.
has plenty to say, but yeah, she just does her thing, and yeah, it's incredible what she was able to do for this movie.
The father deluded himself.
You promised me you wouldn't die.
All right, so we're actually in a streak of very closely numbered point wise. So we got 57 to 60. This is Andrew's first green at number 20 is May December.
Oh man, yeah, I love this movie. It was a shame that I drove like 50 minutes to go see it. And the dude behind me was like snoring for at least like 45 minutes of the
Not
movie,
snoring.
2 separate times. He literally fell asleep, like sprawled out over the theater chairs. It was insane. I guess he just
Let me
wasn't
know
gripped.
wake me up when they get to December.
Exactly. But it's like an interesting movie because I think I'm correct here that this was like first script. Maybe I'm wrong, but either way, I don't know.
I think
Todd
so,
Haynes
yeah.
is like is a strong director, and he just has like Natalie Portman, Julianne Moore, and Charles Melton doing some absolutely insane stuff in this movie.
The actor who plays the that one son, the older son, you know what I'm talking about?
Yep.
The musician.
Yep.
He's excellent as well.
Yes. Beautiful, a beautifully shot movie. Another underrated cinematography movie, I think. Like shooting in Savannah, right in Georgia. I think it's Savannah, like somewhere
Yeah,
really
Savannah.
far in the south. There, it's like you don't see that a lot in movies. Just like really interesting. And I mean, you can compare this movie to like a million other things. I think about like Persona. Bergman's Persona is like an easy one, but
Yeah.
just like pulling from so much interesting stuff. And it's another movie where the discourse around it was like insufferable. Like
It's
what people
camp.
were taken away from this movie. but it's amazing. Charles Melton is another. I think literally the other biggest snub of the year that I can think of in terms of like awards and whatnot. Where I think it was for me, it's the best supporting actor performance of the entire year. Like his character, just absolutely devastating.
The lack of nominations in this movie at the Oscars is just the funniest indictment
Yeah, surprising.
of the acting community, because it's
Exactly.
just like it was too close to home. It was
Yep.
literally too close to home.
It's also a very funny movie.
It is very funny.
It is funny. It is funny.
So the hot dog joke at the beginning. It's like it's like one of the funniest moments of the entire year. Maybe I remember like it was me, the snoring guy, and like maybe one other person in the theater, and I just like burst out laughing by myself. Like this joke is so funny.
Brody's sharing a joint with his son on the roof the first time and having his little freak out.
Yep, and all I can think is like, you're doing this on the roof, guy.
Yeah,
get off the roof. Get off the roof.
Not good.
You're gonna take a tumble. But yeah, this is a great movie,
It's
and it was
great.
one that kind of like fluctuated a little bit in my list. It was always pretty high, but like toward the end of the year, I was sitting there like looking at these other movies. I'm like, I think May December is like just better than most of these. Like I think it's amazing.
It was a tough one to rank.
Yes, it is a tough one to rank, but I think it's great.
All right. So at 19, we're only moving up 1 point to 61 is Innis Maine.
Yeah,
I believe that's the correct
Let's
pronunciation.
go.
And interestingly, we just went on a 4 streak where it was everyone's first green. So this was Sam's first green.
Oh yeah. I fucking love this movie so much. I just love how it looks. I just adore how
absurd.
it looks.
I think that Mark Jenkins is just like a student of the craft. I mean, like really, really values medium and format, and it's just like very evident in all of his movies, all of his shorts, whatever. Like, but especially this one, that he just like does his things his own way, does things in a way that nobody else does. He's got like his little manifesto, and likes to shoot on like small format film and shoots on a tripod and doesn't record audio, and it's just like you don't see literally anybody else making movies with this sort of approach. And it's evident, in every single shot. He's also like, directing the movie. He shot the movie, he did the score for the movie, he wrote the movie, like did like everything. And he's just like shooting the movie with his friends. I think I read, and I didn't know this. I read this actually a little bit ago because I was waiting for us to talk about this one. Is that Mary Woodvine is his partner? I did not know that. It's like very interesting. She's in like all of his other big stuff. She's in Bait. She's in Bronco's House. As like big important characters. Granted, so is Edward Rowe, who's like the boatman in Eastman. He's like the lead in Bait. So he's just like working with his boys, doing his thing. And I think it's just beautiful to see. Like, thank you, Neon, for distributing this movie. It's like strange little movie. I'm a big fan. I kind of stole the floor there, my bad, but
Oh, I mean,
I like really like this movie.
Yeah. Yeah. It's one thing I'll say is I think I wish it was a little bit more out there, because I feel like it's like a convoluted metaphor, which I prefer was less of a metaphor and more just images.
That's kind of how I felt.
But it's nothing else like it coming out nowadays.
Nope.
Not even close.
All right, so moving on to 18. Technically, this is a tie, so Ennisman is actually tied. We have The Taste of Things, also at 61
man.
points.
Shit literally and figuratively cooks.
When I was putting my list together, I was continually like, actually, I prefer Taste of Things to this. Oh, I prefer Taste of Things. I preferred it, and it ended up at 7 on my list.
Whoa.
Wow.
Whoa.
Wow. Nice.
I think
Food lover.
I think it's very similar. I think Sam, you would really like this because of what you were saying about Ferrari, because it's about sort of similar things. It's not like Ferrari. Ferrari is like a sad sort of thing to it, but Taste of Things is more, life. But it focuses so much on the cooking, and it is
Literally
unbelievable.
just
Incredible
food
sequences of cooking.
It's
Unbelievable.
just like unbroken and insanely long, like sequences of making this one thing or making these multiple things. I mean, it opens basically with what it's probably at least a 30-minute unbroken like sequence
yeah.
of them like cooking up in the kitchen. Camera just moving around. You hear every single thing that they're doing. It's like you can smell it.
You literally
You wish you
smell
could.
it
You
and
wish
taste
you
it.
could. Yeah.
It's absurd.
Like
It's-
sitting there, my mouth is fucking watering for 2.5 hours.
I love
just-
the kinds of stories that like focus on someone who, kind of like you mentioned before, Josh, are just like intensely devoted to a craft. So if that's what this is, then I'm definitely gonna watch it. at some point.
100%.
Yeah, it's about two people who are very devoted to the craft, well, among other people, and it's just it's got a bunch of stuff in their relationship, and it's just a great movie. I was expecting to like it, and I was like, I can't think of a single movie that makes cooking this amazing. I literally cannot.
I would have to think about it, but yeah.
Think about it. I mean, I think about like the big cooking movie last year, right? Which is like The Menu, and I think about this.
Yeah.
They're like polar opposites in like every single conceivable way, but it's just like, I don't know. Anya Taylor-Joy eating a cheeseburger will never do anything that this movie does to me. Just like watching, I mean, everything that they're doing in here, it's just like absolutely staggering.
Yeah. Juliette Binoche is always just.
Yep.
I mean, she's goated. If I can,
Yep.
if I may, and yeah, I love the way the movie was shot and edited. I thought it was pretty unique. Like you said, like the opening sequences with the cooking. There's so many tight shots where like you don't think about it, but every once in a while you do notice the fact that like we haven't cut to a wide.
No,
In
you like
ages.
you
Never.
literally like don't the whole movie.
It never happens. It like shocks you. Like I remember there's a shot like when all the homies come over to taste the food, and like towards the end of that scene, you finally get like a wide of all of them at the table together, and I was like, oh, that's a wide shot. We haven't had one of those in like ages. And then like a lot of really interesting like hard cuts. Yeah, really good.
Like I like to complain about natural lighting a lot because so many directors don't know how to do it, and there's bits of this movie where I think it's a bit problematic when it's dark, but I think it's mostly like a significantly better approach than something like Napoleon with like how the lighting looks in this movie. Anytime it's not completely dark, this movie like looks amazing as well. They just like figured it out, where any other director doing that kind of similar approach seemingly doesn't do it well, especially nowadays. It's like really well done here.
Yeah, it's like even when there's no food in the shot, it looks like you can still eat it.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, so 17, we're going up only 2 points here. Fallen Leaves, a bit of an interesting one. Zach has it at 26. Sam didn't see it, and me and Andrew both have it at 8.
Oh, really?
Oh, damn.
That's funny.
Um,
I love this movie.
I'll say as I thought it was. I really did like the deadpan
Yep.
approach. I fucked with that. Like the performances quite a bit. Yeah, and a good story.
Yeah, I typically don't like the excessively nihilistic, where it's where the nihilistic is like not really, well, it's informing the humor, but it's like straight up there, like it's nihilistic movie.
Yeah, everybody
Um,
kind of sucks and is hopeless.
Yeah, I typically don't like that, but I did like it here because this is pretty solidly my style of comedy. Just funny.
Really funny movie.
I'm not too
Yes.
familiar with the rest of his movies. I do know he's huge, well regarded. He's like the Finnish director pretty much. And I guess if this is pretty much what I imagined a Finnish director would be like. It's cold up there
Yep.
and weird, I guess, suppose. But yeah, I think it's just good. Funny story. Or, well, the story's not really too funny, but, the circumstances are funny and the way characters interact and how they, bounce around each other in, modern life. I really liked it. And I also...
All revolves around going to the movies.
in the fucking movie that they're watching is a very interesting one to pick.
It's so funny. It's like such a funny choice.
Yeah, it is kind of interesting because this is so high up on my list, and it's hard to really talk about.
Yeah, that's how I feel about it too.
Yep.
It's just a
Gotta
good
just
movie.
watch it.
It's like really pretty simple as well. Is that kind of
Yeah.
how I feel about it? It's a very simple approach,
Yep.
simple story. I mean, simple visual language, and all of that is why I think it's so great.
Yep.
It's so simple, and it's like not afraid of that in any way. I mean, it's like, isn't it literally like 80 minutes long? You know, it's like really short
Yep.
too. It's like they're not wasting any time.
Yeah, I think the typical sort of comedic device of like someone is supposed to be here or they're about to meet and then they don't, or something like that. Slight miscommunication is just funny, and it works really well. It played very straight. It keeps happening to these people in the
Yep.
movie. All right, 16 moved up. We got 3 points. This is also the highest ranking movie that did not appear on one of our ballots. As in, it made the ballot. As in, we all saw it, but it did not make my ballot. This is Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. 66 points.
Spider-Verse.
Zach had it at 11, Sam at 13, Andrew at 15, and it did not make my top 34.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like if you do like this movie or like very much like it, the reasons why are pretty self-evident.
Yep.
It's gorgeous. It's innovative. Obviously, it took a lot of work to create, which has been the subject of some scrutiny. But I also think, I mean, it's animation for you. Seems like to me it paid off. To personally, like I was as somebody who loves animation and has always really appreciated the ability to make something that's just how hard it is to make animation work, and how innovative this was and how visually out there they pushed it. Really loved it. And then it keeps the heart of Spider-Verse set up in the first one, where the characters are just very likable, and
Yeah.
you want to follow them and you care about what happens, and yeah.
Yeah, I also similarly, I feel like it was just a really, really strong follow up to the first Spider Verse. I thought visually it looked cool. I also want to acknowledge that many of the people who watched it and wanted to like it more than they did, like found certain like graphical sequences just be actually like overwhelming or difficult
Yeah.
to watch or enjoy because of that. And I don't want to invalidate anyone who feels that way because
Mm-mm.
literally like some people are just gonna enjoy it and other people are like honest to God gonna get motion sickness, and I get that.
Oh, yeah.
And, I don't want to act as though you have to like it or you're missing something if you
No.
don't like it. I just personally thought it slammed, but I
Yes.
also like looking at Speed Racer and did not blink once the entire time. So
It's also it's a great soundtrack too. Both the
That's
score
what I was
and
gonna
the,
mention.
and the Metro
That too.
Boomin shit is all very good. And
This
you know,
the score is good. I think it's the Metro Boomin stuff that really, really stands out in this movie. It's like it makes the movie feel like so like lived in. Like you feel like you're there with these
Yeah.
characters, like in
it's their
New York,
soundtrack.
and
I mean, that's the beauty.
exactly.
Yeah.
It just like works so well.
I also
Yeah.
feel like it's just. Oh, sorry.
No, go for it.
I also just feel like, and I know that in a way we already had a little bit of a coming of age story in the first Spider Verse film, but I also feel like it's very much a good setup for the next phase of that, where he's not just this like young 12, 13-year-old like pre-adolescent anymore. It's like he's
Bro, he's
dealing
15.
like Miles is dealing with all the problems that both comes with being Spider-Man, but also juxtaposed in just trying to be a human being, which is tale as old as time as far as Spider-Man goes. But then like seeing that aspect of the Spider-Man narrative sort of like blend itself into this specific Miles Morales, I felt like they did a really good job of setting up the stage,
Yeah.
especially with like, again, no spoilers, but a certain character reveal at the very end just makes me very, very excited to see how they're going to explore that in the final of the trilogy, whenever that comes out.
Yeah. It's
Whenever
just,
that comes out.
Yeah. Last thing I'll say is like, yeah, these movies always have they just have excellent voice casts along with
Oh,
really
yeah.
strong scripts. So I just feel like the dialogue is always really strong and it's delivered very well. And yeah, again, it leads to the characters being very likable.
I guess I'll be the one to say this, and you guys probably all know what I'm about to say. My biggest problem with Spider Verse is that it's it's part one, right?
Yeah.
And this
Fair.
movie absolutely aggressively feels like a part one, like maybe worse than a lot of other examples
Yeah.
that I think we've gotten, especially worse than I think a movie that we're gonna probably talk about pretty soon. That I think does it much better in terms of being a part one. I'm not even gonna say it's necessarily a better movie, That's not even like what I'm trying to say by saying this, but it's just a better movie as a whole, like one individual movie than this one.
That's fair.
Yep.
Just like
Totally.
left me very unsatisfied with how it ended,
Yep.
and I don't know how you change it. That's the
Yeah.
other thing. It's like, what else can you do? I don't know.
Mhm.
I couldn't tell you.
Mm-mm.
And I'm excited, for the next one, but I feel like a lot of my excitement is literally the fact that, we just got half of a movie.
Yeah, the climax
That's
of
very
the movie,
long as well.
Yeah, climax of the movie feels like I saw this movie 3 times in theaters, and I got a chance to see it when they recently re-released it for my third time, and I can say like the climax of the movie, it very much feels like a midpoint of a movie.
Yep.
And then but it is supposed to kind of be the second to third act transition, and yeah, it does feel very clunky, and I literally left for the pretty much the entire last chunk of the movie, the third time, because I knew what happened, and I mean, the visuals are great as always, but I was like, I don't need to see any of this last chunk of the story. I don't really care. Just give me the second part.
Yep.
All right, so moving on to 15. Speak of the devil.
I'm a genius.
I was a little surprised at how this went. Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning Part 1 at number 15 with 71 points. Zach had it at 23, same at 21. Andrew at 20. I had it at 5. I guess I'll start off because
Go for
the big sort of criticism of the movie is that it's so convoluted. And I happened to see it 3 times in quick succession in the first week of its release, because it only had so many days
Yep.
in premium format, so I had to get in. And because I saw it so many times, all the clunkiness of the plot and all the little things that are sort of hard to wrap your head around disappeared. So, and also because we started before we watched it, pretty much every little moment in the movie was spoiled by the marketing, which was such a mistake.
Yep.
After you've watched it so many times, the excitement of watching a brand new movie wears off, and you're then just focusing on watching the movie as it is. Makes the movie end up being a lot more satisfying than it was in first watch, which I liked a lot in first watch. But after the rewatches, the story clears itself up a little bit more because you don't have to think about the story at all. You know where it's going. And it still has, top of the line action.
Yep.
Tom Cruise. It's funny. The opening sequence in the airport, the opening sequence with the, disguised Tom and this season in the airport it's perfect. It's not the best Mission Impossible. It's pretty low in the Mission Impossibles.
Yeah, I agree.
But
somehow
I'm still, having seen it so many times, all the downsides kind of sort of went away, which is kind of rare, in my opinion, for a movie. If you watch it a lot of times, typically downsides start to grate on you. For me, it was the opposite, and I had to rank it so high because it's a fucking slammer.
At the end of the day, it's Mission Impossible. It's hard to dislike it, really.
Oh yeah, my ranking of it is also, I think, lower than I actually feel about it. But it's also like when you're ranking movies, and there's one movie where you're like, I can very clearly say what I don't like about this movie, versus other movies where it's a little bit less clear. It's kind of what happened with Dead Reckoning, where like I love the action. Like I always think about, like whenever I think about the things I don't like, and then I think about the whole train sequence and the piano shit and like all of that's the train cars. It's like it like makes me fall in love with the movie again. Where I'm like, this shit is heat. This is like great. Top tier stuff. It's just, the story I just think is like, it's too much. Chill the fuck out. just a little bit.
It's going to be very interesting to see how it clears up in the second one. Or, well, we're not getting a part 2, change the name of it. So, it will be interesting to see how that clears up, because after watching it so many times, there's obvious intentionality with some of the things that are going to be cleared up, which is, weakens the first part. But, is what it is.
Is what it is.
All right. Coming in at 14, this is the highest ranking movie that was not seen by all 4 of us. At 77 points, it's Beau is Afraid.
Oh.
Zach had it at 14. Andrew had it at 11. I put it at 3.
Wow.
Shit is so good.
Nice.
Shit is so good. I wish I could put it in my top 10.
I struggled with ranking this one. It like felt like you said just now. It felt really bad that it was outside of the top 10.
Movie could have been in my top 5 easily. I loved
Yep.
it.
See, it's like, and I feel like I was on the record about like not being super excited for this movie either.
Me
Like-
neither, honestly. Yeah.
Kind of how, I know you felt kind of that way too. And I don't know. I mean, granted, I think Ari Aster like has a good track record. Like definitely, but
It's a lot
this
better
is
now.
like exactly. This is like I think by far his best movie
Easily
by a
yeah.
significant amount.
Like
but
it is funny because I really liked Hereditary, and
Yeah.
I did not like Midsummer the first time. I really liked it. Midsummer was hilarious, which is why I was so excited for Beau is Afraid. He was like always making a movie that's funny. Well, he was
Boy,
great at the
is
funny
it.
stuff in Midsummer, and yeah, absolutely, this is I think
so
the
funny.
funniest movie maybe in years. I think it's
Yes.
just hilarious, and I also think it's absolute descent into madness. I think I'm
Mhm.
so
it's like
happy
terrifying at points as
He-
well.
Mhm.
he's spent so much money to get this done.
It's like evident when you're watching it as well.
Yeah. The production is incredible. It's like and there's such a clear vision to it. Like really, like there's just a sense of like, I think some people watch this movie and it feels like probably maybe feels scatterbrained, but like I don't know. It seems to me like there's a very clear vision throughout, and the humor just elevates it to make it like completely palatable from start to finish.
Yep.
Yeah, and because I was after Hereditary, I really liked it. Like Ari Aster after Midsummer, I was like, I think Ari Aster's a hack. I think he's just doing this over and over again. And then I watched interviews of him. I think it was with the Criterion Collection. They had Ari Aster and the Safdie brothers, and they were just talking. And I was like, oh, Ari Aster's a genius. He actually knows what he's talking about. Because I feel like so many, especially the young directors, I feel like I never really get the impression that they're like super well studied or anything. They're certainly capable, directors. With Ari Aster, I was like, oh, he understands movies, he understands stories, he understands, literature, and I really got the impression that he's a genius. And so I do think Ari Aster might be the premier director of the young ones. I think he's just a genius. He gets it.
I think this is gonna be kind of hard to follow up. That's my fear.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like it's insanely ambitious. Like he called it Jewish Lord of the Rings
Yeah.
going in, which I was like, oh, that's a really funny way to describe it. But it also like that was actually what got me excited for the movie. Like
Yep.
I was like, oh, that's interesting. And then you watch it and like, yeah, that's exactly what it is. Like it's an epic. It's like it's this like journey.
It's an epic,
Yeah.
and we just literally don't get those anymore as
No.
well.
No. And it's so out there, and it's just like it's one of those movies where it's like there's a temptation to overly dissect it, but it's like I just think this movie is so it's just a romp. I don't know. It's like it's all these different like pieces of being neurotic that many of us can identify with, I'm sure. And yeah, it's just the humor again just consistently was making me laugh out loud.
Yeah, and something too is Ari Aster short films. I've only seen a couple of them. Very much you sort of get the impression that he's a shock artist, that he's just trying to shock you with crazy images and like
You succeeded.
screwed up circumstances. But he's got the juice.
Paid off down the line. Yeah, some of that early stuff that I've seen, I was absolutely floored by some of it.
It's very shocking. He knows how to do it.
Yes. Yeah, it's effective in that way. That's for sure.
All right, moving on. 13. We got The Killer.
Oh yeah.
Pretty interesting. So we've got Zach at 12, Sam at 24, Andrew at 12, and I also put it at 11. So,
Hovering outside the top 10 for many of us.
yeah, that's. I will say, I mean, it's very much like an autobiography of how David Fincher makes movies. So,
Yeah.
it's called The Killer, and so a lot of people. One thing else is there's so many movies that are about killers or about people who kill for a living, and they
Yes.
sort of pose themselves as like character studies of like, what does it mean to be a person who kills? Like, no offense, but none of you guys know what that means. Like I don't know what it means to be a killer. I don't know what it means to
Nope.
like kill people. So if you
You
were to
had to
put
live with
me,
that.
if you were to put me in charge of making a movie about killing, I wouldn't know at all what to do to really get into his head. Like other
So
than
he tries to translate it,
yeah, very basic.
from what he
Like
knows to what it must be like.
yeah, so the killer's the title, the killer ends up being sort of, just a pun because it's not about killing. It's about
Yeah.
movies. It's about craft.
Yeah, craft process.
And all that. And it's damn good exercise in craft, which
Yep.
is what makes it
Pretty
so
spectacular.
so
It's
Some
also
of the
great.
how-
stuff that's happening in this movie.
Yeah, and many people have talked about how this movie's obviously it pokes fun and it's kind of de-pantses craft itself, like where it's just like not necessarily in saying there's no value to it, but just in how it's changed in the modern world, obviously, and um, the inevitability, obviously, of fucking up, but then also the resources available in the modern world to also create shortcuts that did not used to be the case. Yeah, it's pretty interesting.
I thought the joke about the hunter and the bear was hilarious. I was thinking, like, where's this going? Where's this? Oh my god.
What are you doing here? Living amongst the normies.
Yeah. One thing I'll say is, even though I really like the movie, a lot of the criticisms for people who didn't like it do make sense. Where it's kind of like empty. It is just like a exercise in making as stylish a movie as you can, as competently as you can, which is it is sort of the meta textual thing where that is what it's saying, which does kind of weaken it in terms of being really punchy. But I just like watching well-made movies.
Well, I liked how it kind of plays into also just like main character syndrome,
Yeah,
where it's just like you want to believe that you're the person that's outside of the narratives on the margins, looking in and pulling the strings, and it's like by the end it's like, well, you kind of have to come to grips with the fact that most of us are just people in a big world, little pawns, and I thought that was pretty fun.
Like David Fincher also just got to play all his favorite songs in one movie. And this is another great Reznor Ross soundtrack
Yeah.
this year.
one of their best.
Much has been said about how it works as much as score as it does sound design throughout.
Yep.
And I think it's pretty cool.
It's also got one of the best fight sequences of the whole year. The Florida Man fight.
So good.
It's like absolutely insane. I'm not trying to doubt David Fincher. I didn't know he had something quite like that even in him. It's
It was
pretty
crazy.
insane.
Yeah, and the soundtrack in that particular scene is just great.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, and
Yep.
didn't even mention the intro to the movie.
Oh, the whole Paris
which
sequence,
is, no, the
or the intro.
the opening credits.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Which feels like a Hitman loading screen. Which
Yes,
is
very much so.
This very much feels like a video game movie. Like this is how you imagine
Yes.
yourself playing a Hitman in a game.
Exactly.
it's a
As
very-
somebody who's watched a lot of Hitman
It's-
playthroughs,
yeah.
that very much resonated when people were talking about that.
Yep.
Also,
used to like
Fassbender.
playing Hitman
We just say
as well.
He's a
Fassbender.
beast.
Fassbender.
He's finally
Yeah.
back.
Welcome back to a good movie, buddy.
I hope he
Yep.
wasn't the one who was screaming at Rebecca Ferguson.
I
Listen,
hope
oh
not.
man.
But
I hope not.
all right, so moving on to 12, we have only 1 point higher with 82 points. It's Anatomy of a Fall. Zach had this at 19, Sam at 14, Andrew at 16. I had it at 9.
That was very, very good.
I was interested that I ended up putting it this high because at first watch I was like, all right, a good movie, all right,
Yeah.
good movie. But it sit a lot better than I expected it would, because I think, I mean, there's a lot of movies nowadays where they're trying to tell things from different perspectives and like who's right, who's wrong.
Yeah.
I think Anatomy of a Fall does it so good in that they aren't actually like showing it from different people's perspectives.
No.
They tell it, from different people's perspectives. You get to see them all interact.
Yeah. The scene in the car with the dad and the son like
Yeah.
saying the words is like genius. Like that's the perfect way to portray that, where it's like that's like their way of telling you, like visually, normally this would communicate you're seeing what actually happened from this person's perspective, but in adding that little wrinkle to it, all of a sudden it's like No, this is him just saying what happened. That's all that this is. And you can read
It's
into it or choose to buy it or not buy it as much as you feel compelled to.
It's tell, don't show that actually works, and that's rare.
Yeah.
Yep.
For me, like I felt like I liked many qualities of this film that I also loved about Tar the year
Yeah,
prior.
100%.
Both the ethical ambiguity, the way in which it won't allow the audience to see, like you said, it's like it's not going to show you every aspect of it, and to some extent it trusts the audience to draw their own conclusions as to what actually happened, where are you morally, etc., to the point where I almost kind of don't want a definitive answer to did she do it, in the same way that
Yeah.
I don't want a definitive answer to what did Lydia Tarr do, because to me that would take away from the joy of the film. But yeah, I very similar qualities, and I love both of those films. Tar was my favorite the year prior, so yeah.
I mean, the court sequence is all great. I love that fucking prosecutor.
Yep.
That dude is
Yep.
kills it.
Yep. I mean,
Very misogynistic song. It was the instrumental version.
Ooh. Amazing child performance.
Oh yeah.
He cooked.
Amazing dog performance.
He also cooked.
Hashtag Snoop deserved better.
Yep. Yeah, he got done dirty.
As somebody who's seen dogs be sick, I was like having like a visceral reaction to that scene.
Same here. It's like, oh man.
And Sandra Hüller, what a year
Yeah.
that she had in 2023. Absolutely amazing. And I mean, this I think is, this is definitely the performance if you're going to talk about one of them, but it's also she has to do a lot more in this movie.
Yep.
Than the other one she's in that we'll talk about soon.
Yar.
But it's just outstanding. I mean, it was really cool too to see, how much recognition this movie got the award shows this year, especially the Oscars.
My last thought on this is I didn't realize that Jenny Beth was also actually in this. I was like, oh
Yeah.
shit. Hello.
I wanted to point at the screen when we saw it at the theater. So I really liked oh man. I can't even remember the name of the band now that I'm on the spot. I really liked their band. The post-punk band. I'll remember the name maybe at some point.
All right. So moving on to 11. 88 points. We have Poor Things.
Oh yeah.
Zach had this at 16, Sam at 10, Andrew at 13, and me at 13. Kind of interesting. We pretty much agree with this across the board. It's hilarious.
So
Yes.
funny.
Very, very funny movie.
Yorgos has a style. So you know going in that you're gonna get something that you can't get anywhere else.
Yep.
It's consistently, funny, strange, entertaining. I guess I would call it, I don't know what you'd say, it's social commentary, like juvenile, I don't know, kind of boring or not particularly interesting, but I think the whole main purpose of the movie really is just let me have an excuse to do all this crazy shit.
It's a good excuse. It's a good POV that they came up with to justify the style. Like, it makes perfect sense to have it through pretty much the eyes of a newborn adult.
Yeah.
it's a really great way to approach it. But like you said, the kind of the commentary that's inserted with it is, take it or leave it.
Yeah, it's not like
For me,
stupid, but nothing like interesting.
For me, I know I alluded to it earlier when we were talking about Barbie, but when I said that there were films that released this year that made the points that people praised Barbie for a lot better than Barbie did, Poor Things was one of the first ones on my mind. And I think the biggest difference, really, and I was talking to Zach about this yesterday, is that Poor Things relishes in sex, and then Barbie, by definition, cannot portray sex. And I feel like that's such a massive aspect to like interactions with misogyny and shit like that in the world. It's gonna involve sex. That if you're making a movie that's supposed to be like, rah-rah championing all these stuffs, and then you like can't portray it, that's part of what made Barbie so frustrating to me. And it was self-aware about it. I get it, I understand. But then it was such a breath of fresh air when I was able to watch a movie like Poor Things, like 5 minutes in, she's pissing on the floor. I was like, okay, let's go.
One of my favorite lines in the movie is just when she's just like, you're all whores, and she goes, "We are the means of our own production."
Okay, why not?
That's
so funny. just like isn't ever taking any of it that seriously, but
Yeah.
in that it's also like I think a much more informed commentary than movies that are in a similar vein.
And it also
But
just looked great.
so that's what I was about to say as well. It's Robbie Ryan's my dog. I just like love how all these, and everybody loves how these Yorgos Lanthimos movies look, but I mean, just like a Gaudi, all this Gaudi stuff, and it's just like, it's just amazing what they were able to do with like the world building and visual style of this movie. And Emma Stone, I think it's like,
A star.
maybe a career best for her. This performance, Mark Ruffalo is so funny as well. It's like good for him. It's like good to see him, doing something that's not the Hulk. Really good, pretty good score too for this movie.
Yes, like the score a lot.
And like first score for I don't
Yeah.
remember his name,
Me neither.
but
It's his name is like it's like a combination of foreskin and something else, and he like combined them
Jerskin
together.
Fendrix.
Yeah, it's
Erskine Fendrix.
it's quite the name.
Real name,
Well, good for him, he
Jocelyn
cooked.
Dentpuli.
I
interesting.
see.
So, yeah.
Okay, so we have our top 10. Technically, I made a mistake. Poor Things was tied with our number 10. So we actually have 11 in our top 10.
Shit like the Nostalgia Critic.
Yeah, Poor Things at 88. Also at 88 is Asteroid City. This
Oh, yeah.
is Zach had it
Yeah,
at
baby.
6, Sam at 11, Andrew at 14. I had it at 21, interestingly.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, yeah, I don't know. It's like Wes Anderson, I think, is just in his bag. I will say, I think as I've sat with it, I like French Dispatch a little bit more,
Yeah.
as a whole, but I still think this is like right up there with the best of the stuff that he's done. Just him talking about him, he's built this approach, he's built this style, and now he's just adding another layer to it. And again, people accuse him of just doing the same thing over and over again, which is unfortunate because it means that they're not getting anything new out of the new Wes Anderson, despite the fact that he is adding on layers of commentary to storytelling and his style and approach and how it all kind of fits together to a larger whole. I love the performances. I think it's also consistently funny. Great song with the dear aliens who are in heaven.
Yeah.
It's just so good.
My
Yeah,
secret lore with this one is that this was my first Wes Anderson film.
Wow.
That's
Because I had somehow never watched Fantastic Mr. Fox as a kid, even though it's totally the kind of thing I'd love.
Is
And I
it?
somehow missed French Dispatch in 2021, but Asteroid City was the first, and I just adore it. I just think it's beautiful, funny.
It's an absolute
Super
first
funny.
way to dive
it's
into
a
Wes Anderson.
very Wes Anderson movie.
He's just cranking that shit up a little bit higher and then add in that layer over it to kind of encapsulate it. It's really interesting.
One thing I'll say that was kind of interesting to me was I was surprised at how many people didn't understand this movie. I feel like this was like very pointed.
People were very confused by
It's
this.
very much like, what's the point of doing this and doing that? Thought he was very clear in this that Jason Schwartzman, his
I don't know the
character,
point of the play.
exactly, was like, we do all this,
Doesn't matter. Just tell a story.
for what? Exactly. It's, I mean,
Why storytelling matters. That's why we have to lean into our own process, as Wes Anderson is actively leaning into his process.
My friend Kate actually made a comment about how, to quote them, it's funny to hear people call a movie where all the characters chant this thesis at you at the end inaccessible.
Yep. Literally.
Can't wake up if you don't fall asleep.
exactly.
Literally.
Shit like Dune.
So true.
Yeah, the only thing I say is in comparison to, French Dispatch, which I liked a lot more. And also I do think we didn't rank it on the here, but the Henry Sugar, which I did like more than
I think it's also
Asteroid City.
I agree. I think it's much better. I think it's like some of the best stuff Wes Anderson has ever done is in that short.
I think it just loses points by comparison to the other Wes Andersons that have come out in recent, history. But it's still a great movie.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, this is. I mean, we're gonna talk about it with Nolan and other directors. It's like you can still put out like one of the best movies in your gallery, and it can still just be kind of like, yeah, but like for Wes Anderson, it's not that great. But then it's like,
Yeah.
well, it's Wes Anderson, so it's automatically just like one of the best things to come out.
Yep.
All right, we have some interesting ones coming up here. Number 9 at 92 points. We have The Boy and the Heron. Zach had it at 3, Sam at 1, Andrew at 26, and me at 18.
I was aware when I put this one at number 1 that I was making an extraordinary decision.
Yeah, I think
But,
It fucking cooks. I don't know.
I don't have too much to say about it because this was the first Miyazaki movie I've seen since I was a kid.
Gotcha.
So for me, it does feel like it's the end of career where he's sort of reflecting on his career.
Yes.
And it's not like it's inaccessible. And I did really like it. But I do think it loses that connection that a lot of people have, very intense connections with Miyazaki, which I have not had a history with him.
It's like
That's fair.
I have a similar relationship to Josh with like his movies. I've seen like a little bit more of them, and some a little more recently, but like I was just like missing a lot of pieces here. Is how I felt watching it like the whole time. I was just like missing things that I think I would have gotten a lot more out of it if I'd like seen more of his movies.
No, that makes sense. That's fair.
Yeah, as somebody who was unintentionally Miyazaki head growing up because I'm Japanese and just like Japanese kids just grow up with that.
Yeah.
It's definitely in conversation with his entire body of work. Like,
Yep.
damn near every single one of the characters featured in Boy and the Heron are both representative of something from Miyazaki's own life. Like the main character, one of his rare male main characters, is also clearly just himself as a boy. But then, like, the character who, I'm not going to go into like spoilers, but there is a major female character who's portrayed who's very clearly one of the major character archetypes that shows up in many of his past films. Actually, there's 2 girl characters who I'd argue are kind of like that. 3 if you count the old grannies. Just over and over, the motifs are relating both the characters that have appeared throughout the entirety of his filmography with real people just from his own life. And I think if you're connected, like Josh and Andrew said, if you're connected to that body of work, but also know a lot of Miyazaki's personal lore going in, then those connections just kind of click and you realize what he's actually trying to say to the audience.
Yeah, and I mean, this term gets used a lot, but I mean, it is such a visceral, dreamlike experience to watch, and it's obviously again like that's in conversation with the grief of the character and his own grief. Obviously, Miyazaki's. I only became a Miyazaki person in the last like 2 or 3 years, but immediately fell in love with it again as a longtime fan of animation. I've talked about we were talking about when we saw it, like sitting down in the theater to see it. The first Miyazaki movie I saw in theaters, like on its opening release, was just such an insane experience, such an incredible pairing of audio and visuals, a wonderful score, one of my favorite scores of the year.
It is an amazing score.
Like it get like it's like Spider-Verse is an incredible piece of like modern animation, but you look at like The Boy and the Heron and it's like you just can't beat the Miyazaki process and the results that you get from it, because it's just an absurdly beautiful looking movie,
and like
incredible visuals.
Yeah, and like the very first sequence that they show with like the Tokyo firebombing is one of the greatest pieces of animation I've seen Miyazaki cook up in his entire life, and he's in his 80s.
It's absurd.
I've never seen anything like that from him before.
He got the opportunity to I mean, he hasn't made a movie in like a decade, so it's like it's been obviously there's been time for things to progress, but like it is just like his style also cranked to 11, and it's it was everything I wanted it to be.
I wanted to touch on one last thing that Josh mentioned about it, how he said it's like an end of career movie, and it absolutely is, even if he also immediately took back his retirement. He's like saying, I'm working on other things.
He really liked doing this.
But to me, it's not just end of career, it's end of life. Like, Miyazaki's in his
Yep.
he's in his 80s. He knows he's not going to be around much longer. And I've seen some people compare this work to like Ryuichi Sakamoto's 12 or David Bowie's Black Star, for example. And honestly, I do think it's a very apt comparison, not just because, it's probably going to be his final full-length movie, but because it's very much a story about the fact that he's dying and just nothing will ever change that. And it's not
Yeah.
just him grieving the fact that he's going to die, but it's the fact that all of his beloved treasured memories about himself, his family, everybody who inspired his characters, and then this entire like imaginative fictional world, all these tropes that he created that he made characters for over and over and over that are just beloved by countless people and himself are all going to die with him. And no matter how much he wants somebody to carry it on, that is literally inherently impossible because nobody else can be him but himself. And I feel like if that was able to resonate with you in theaters as you're watching that, I don't know, I was sobbing by the end, really.
Yeah. I mean, I think, and the last thing I'll say about it is, it's the dynamic. What I felt like I was just kind of almost subconsciously, implicitly connecting with the film is in this dreamlike experience that the main character is having, is that relationship that I can relate to between grief, pain, loneliness, and then storytelling, dreams, imagination, and how that's a dynamic relationship that evolves over time to where it starts off as having a specific function and then I don't know, it's complex and you get attached and yeah, I don't know. I fucked with it, one could say.
You do.
Yeah, I'll say about at least on our ranking, this was the first appearance of number one. So this was Sam's number one. It's our first one. This year, none of us had the same number one, which has not been the case for the past years.
Interesting.
Yeah, very interesting. So moving on to number 8. All right, this is an interesting one. This is Zone of Interest. 98 points. This is Zach's number one. Sam put it at 9.
Yar.
Andrew put it at 3. I had it at 29.
29.
Controversial picks.
I'll just say because the only thing I think about why I ended up putting this so low was it's sort of the sort of point of it is like we're trying to convey the Holocaust without doing like some Schindler's List story, or like you can put in a narrative or something like that to like to really convey it, and like so you can more accurately sort of see how the Nazis,
the mechanisms of it. Yeah.
And to me it didn't work because that in itself is sort of a gimmick. I think it's just impossible to really do this. And obviously, I mean, it's a personal story for Jonathan Glazer because he's Jewish, but for me, you do this, and even this ends up feeling a little, manipulative. That's not exactly the word I'm thinking because like obviously you present the Holocaust. It's the Holocaust. It's gonna grip you regardless. So it's not really the subject matter that's manipulative. It's just the manner in which he did it was kind of like there's sort of like the tricklings of like an understated art horror movie where I'm like, well, it's kind of the same thing that it's trying to criticize. It's just like a weird feeling to me that ultimately didn't land all that well.
Yeah, I mean that makes sense. I feel like Sam and I were talking about this yesterday as well. Where like I was thinking about like I remember after Under the Skin came out, obviously you watched that movie. It's Glazer's previous film, and like people draw conclusions on it that it's like a feminist film that's kind of about being a woman and the male gaze and all these different dynamics. And Glazer came out and said like wasn't really aiming for like a woman's experience or a female experience, but a human one. And to me, that just kind of, as I went into Zone of Interest, I was like, yes, it's very much like it is about the Holocaust, and you're going to have that reaction. And obviously, the filmmakers have used this to talk about things happening in the world right now, rightfully so. But for me, it felt like there's a lot of projection happening with this movie, where there's this understated approach, and people are projecting their perspectives on what's going on to it.
You mean like audience projection?
Yes, audience projection. As far as like what's happening, what's the point, what am I supposed to get out of this, and leaving people very confused.
Mm.
And to me, I feel like that's by design. Like I think it's what I loved about it is it like it sucked me in, and it made me like scan every frame to see what I was seeing and what I was missing. Obviously, much has been said about the sound, which is incredible.
Best of the year, especially
Yeah.
like, and I don't know how this experience was watching it at home, because I know like Sam and Josh didn't see it in the theater, but it was like outside of the like big IMAX like premium format stuff that we were getting last year, this is like by far and away the best and one of the most visceral experiences I've ever had in a theater.
Yeah.
Especially seeing it where I saw it, like the sound at that theater is incredible.
Yeah, the Mika
And
Levi score is just ridiculous. Yeah.
Score, yeah, the score is amazing.
And I read somewhere that they had to actually strip most of the score because they wanted it to be so quiet throughout. But even then, what we did get, holy shit.
Yeah,
Yeah,
go ahead.
The intro, where it's just like black, right, and
Mhm.
the score swells and swells for like 3 minutes. I mean, I feel like that sets the tone immediately, but also the score during the credits, like
Yeah.
I think it's like maybe
It's
the best
insane.
piece of music of the year from any of these movies.
Yeah.
Just like sat there and I felt like I was like shell shocked
Yeah.
at
And
what I had seen.
the sound approach to the sound also reminded me a bit of Nope from last year, where it's like they try and blend laughter with screams. Like those pieces where it's like you're not actually quite sure at certain points what you're hearing.
I I also just like I mean it seems like with anything that Glazer does, it's just gonna be weird, right? Like he makes weird stuff, and all of the like infrared stuff is like so insane how they decided to shoot
Yeah.
that, and
Yeah.
the transitions between just like single colored frames and flowers and whatnot. It's also like great cinematography, really like understated.
Sandra Hüller is how you pronounce her last name, right?
Yeah.
Believe so.
Probably.
I thought her performance as Hedwig specifically, like I felt like of all the character performances, that was the one that like really drew me in because she's pretty much like cognitive dissonance, the person. And I was talking to Zach a little bit about this yesterday as well, but like as much as I feel like it is about like the audience projecting their own feelings onto the film in the context of today, I feel like cognitive dissonance is kind of like important to that. Like you
Mhm.
have a character who in her mind, not to spoil much, but in her mind, she's always going to be like a victim of circumstances around her, whether she faces the threat of potentially losing the house she currently lives in, or like thinking about, well, what's gonna come of the future after the war, stuff like that. In her mind, she genuinely, truly, I think, believes that she is the victim of this whole situation that she's in when she literally lives across a wall from Auschwitz.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah,
feel
I
like the little things that they sprinkle in throughout, like how she treats her maids or how she talks to her husband and relates to back when they were, sweethearts of 17 and all that juxtaposed with that, I felt like that was really, really good. Like I felt like it nailed like the points that they were trying to get across
Yeah.
just with her character.
Definitely. Yeah, I agree. And yeah, I'll say that just it's called a zone of interest. Clearly, like human attention and the way the human brain just practically works. I think this was one of the most interesting explorations I've seen of that in a movie, where it's just like you said, there's cognitive dissonance. There's like you can like ask the question, what are you supposed to do in that situation if you're Hedwig and you're supposed to be like, oh yeah, that's just happening on the other side of the wall. Like there's an element of ignorance and twisting that is also a survival mechanism for the people that are on the other side. And again, there's a lot of knee-jerk reactions to any portrayal of Nazis for obvious reasons. But again, I feel this is more a human story than one that's placed specific to the Holocaust.
Yeah, that is absolutely, I don't know, staggering how I felt about it. Like, saw it twice in the theater and
Yep.
felt even more positively about it the second time I saw it.
Same.
Almost went a third time.
All right. So, number 7, we have the Iron Claw with 101 points. It's pretty narrow up above zone of interest. We kind of have the top of this is very close. It's getting pretty close. So Iron Claw, Zach had it at 10, Sam at 5, Andrew at 7, and I had it at 17.
That movie also made me cry. Oh my god.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's a tough one. It's a tough watch. I'm sure you guys have heard the true story is even worse.
It is.
Like
yeah.
they had to cut out kids, like, which is just like you hear them. Like,
Not
that's
cut out
fucking-
kids.
They had to cut out kids. They had to cut them out.
Another brother. It's not
They
in
had
the
to-
movie.
It's just like, yeah, which I was listening to the interview with the director, where he was talking about, like, that's really hard to do, obviously, to do that, but it's like that's the balance of actually like telling the story well, in a way that's palatable, and then also being true to what actually happened. And yeah, I mean, it's an incredibly well, like, we've talked about, like, how like solid the direction is, just how sure-handed it is.
Like
From the
amazing
moment the movie
editing.
opens, the moment the movie opens, all those crossfades, the black and white sequence at the start that sets up the whole movie. All the performances are standouts. It's excellent.
Yeah, and
Zac Efron is another kind of guy you can talk about that snub conversation as well. It's a little harder
Yep.
to replace maybe, but it's like amazing in this movie.
I like the bit at the sort of the beginning when Zach meets his wife, and she's like, "But it's all fake, right?" And he gives that sort of explanation where he just skirts around it, where he's like, "Well,
Yeah,
it's all about being, the best performer, and the best performer gets on."
get promoted. Yeah,
Yeah, and it's like the nice that sort of or how this sort of the metaphor of wrestling just equates to the rest of life, where it's often not about what you're actually doing, it's just your appearances and how that reflects your career and your personal life,
yeah,
and how you can things are not as they seem, or just based on how people act. And I thought wrestling is a nice metaphor for conveying that in a performance. And I liked Holt McCallany. I thought was really good as dad.
he's incredible.
Yeah, amazing.
He's incredible.
And he's completely
Uh.
convincing as that figure
Yep.
where
No,
even though he's a,
100%.
he's a dirtbag and he's a trash father, he still has that father gravitas where like there is like respect between all of the the characters in the family,
Yeah.
despite his his
To a point.
To
It's- I
his-
feel like that respect
To
is
a
lost
point.
eventually, but
Yeah.
It's-
Yes, to a very brutal
Yeah.
point.
yeah. But anyway, for number 6,
Can I add
Yeah.
something really quick before we move on? As much as I love the Iron Claw, Sean Durkin must have seen the cinematic masterpiece Heads or Tails 2.
So
true.
true.
He blatantly
The
rips it off in
inspiration
this movie.
is right there. Yes, it's. I mean, it is. Yeah, I mean, it's. I want to say, like, it's with the interview with Sean Durkin. He talked about how it's a movie that's. It's not about the presence of grief; it's about the absence of it, and how that destroys. And just how much of this movie is about, like, discontentment and being fixated on things that don't really matter. What matters is the process and the love that the brothers shared already, but being pushed into a place where that's not enough. Yeah, sorry.
All right, so number 6, we're going up only 2 points to 103. This is Godzilla -1. Zach had it at 13,
Yeah.
Sam at 8, Andrew at 6, I had it at 10.
I liked when Godzilla did the Kamehameha.
Yeah, I think.
I watched.
There you go ahead.
I watched it as somebody who grew up with like the old timey Godzilla films. Like I remember watching the very first Godzilla with my grandpa way back in the day, probably in the 90s. And I felt like this particular one, and like countless people said this before, but I thought it was a really, really good reimagining of the original. Like not just the concept, but also the spirit of it.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm a big fan of what do you call it, Men on a Mission movie, or there's a certain thing that needs to be done, and the whole point of the plot of the movie revolves around getting that thing done and getting the
Figuring it
plan in
out.
place and all that. Like Jaws or anything like that.
Armageddon.
Yeah, Armageddon. So you take that, which is always just an engaging plot, and then you put in characters who are very simple but very earnest, very relatable, specifically sort of because of their simplicity, which is like not a bad thing in any way, and
No.
the circumstances of where they were and the determination that they had to show to get the job done, to kill Godzilla, and you just wrap that all up, put it on a very big screen, make it very, very loud, and you get them.
It was so loud. In IMAX, it was like unreal.
And I can't wait for Godzilla to return in the new Empire.
So true.
So interesting that they're making
So
a sequel
true.
already, but I'm down for
Okay.
Yep.
Can I just say,
it.
in the new Godzilla trailer, they do the whole like charging thing where it loads up his back, which I felt like I hadn't seen until Godzilla -1, and I was wondering if that was like, oh, let's just steal that, or if that's something that's been around or what.
I think it has been around. I
I think it happens in Shin.
Yeah, I think Shin Godzilla
Does it?
has something like, not necessarily the like.
I don't think it's the load up the back thing. I feel like it's different in Shin, but I could be misremembering.
Yeah, I do think he has. I mean, some sort of charge, beam. He doesn't
Yeah, the
just shoot
charging.
it.
Of course, he charges his breath. I'm just saying, like specifically, like you see the charging happening and kind of follow it because it builds
Oh, yeah,
tension
yeah.
in -1 specifically
Yeah.
because it's like do, and you're like do this before it gets to the point where he's gonna blast. And I felt like that wasn't a thing in Shin in the same way, and I felt like I hadn't seen another Godzilla movies, but yeah, that's a side thing.
Yeah, and of course,
My-
you just got to mention the score, which is just classic.
Yeah. My thought on -1 is that I deeply regret not having the chance to see the black and white cut while I was in theaters. Because
Yeah,
everyone
I
I've talked to
was-
who've seen it said that it was even better than the original.
I was gonna bring that up. That I'm like, always gonna be hesitant of a movie that was originally shot in color and then gets converted to black and white in some sort of way. I mean, we like had a really big example of it with like Fury Road. And I never saw that cut, and I'm sure it's like good, but
It's better in color.
exactly, I can't imagine that Fury Road is better in black and white than in color. I mean, it's such a colorful movie just in general, but I went and saw -1 color, and like really, like I said, I was apprehensive about it. I wasn't sure how it would look, but I like read a little bit about how they like meticulously like redid like every single shot in the movie. And this was like always part of their idea, and a lot of that is paying homage, to the original Godzilla movie. And seeing it in black and white is literally better. I think it's the preferred way and how the movie should be. Like if I was showing this movie to somebody for the first time, I would be playing the black and white version every single time over the color version. I think it's a like significant improvement. I think it makes it like more terrifying, more harrowing. It's just like it's pretty insane that they actually pulled it off. It just doesn't normally work because it's inherently an afterthought if you shot something in color the first time. But they did it. Made it work.
Dang.
All right, so moving on to number 5. We're in our top 5.
Number 5.
We're going up by 3 points here to 106. We've got Killers of the Flower Moon. Zach had it at 7, Sam at 6, Andrew at 5. I had it at 16.
So Josh, you some kind of like Marvel enjoyer?
Yeah, I'm just. He said too much shit about the Avengers.
He crossed a line.
So what I will say is because the huge talk about the movie or whatever is that they had to rewrite it. They rewrote it to make it focus more on the Native Americans as opposed to the investigation.
Just the focus of the book.
Yeah, the focus of the book is based off of Jesse Plemons'
Birth of the
character.
FBI.
Yeah. And so they rewrote it because, pretty much very much changed the movie. I think it ended up kind of making it a little shaky because the problem is Scorsese was sort of committed to conveying it truthfully, or the showing pretty much what happened. And the issue is it kind of was, based on my recollection of the story, it was the FBI who pretty much saved the day, because that's how you want to put it. So in the way of the actual narrative of the movie, because you're cutting out all the FBI stuff, you remove so much of the narrative weight, so you know everything that's going to happen, and how it's going to happen for the most part, which is fine. It just ends up a little bit weakening that sort of aspect of the movie, because you know literally from like the start of the movie, of course through the marketing, but you know immediately from the start of the movie, you know what happened, and then you just see it sort of happen without too much in the way of, you know, making it entertaining, which is the point of the movie. Is, you know, this is a real thing. Why are we going to make it in a piece of entertainment for someone to consume and go, wow, look at what they did to those Native Americans? Isn't that crazy? Which
one could argue the very ending of the film was remarking on exactly that.
Which it's the entire you know thesis of the film now after they changed it, but I think maybe weakens the movie as a whole. I think the most compelling stuff of the movie is from Leo's character, because he is very much he does stuff in the movie, but he's similar to, you know, Hedwig and Zone of Interest, where a lot of it he's just blocking out completely, because he does love his wife, but he does some of the most heinous things you can do to her. But he just has no conception of what exactly he's doing. He's just following his lead, and he's dumb. He's dumb as bricks. So it's very interesting to see that sort of the same dynamic of Zone of Interest, the compartmentalization, the way he does all these things directly to his wife, but also, seems to, it seems to upset him, when it sort of comes to light. He's like, well, damn, what did I do? Well, damn, all the stuff I did.
There's consequences for this.
Yeah, all the stuff that I just did is now coming back on me, and there's just no real remorse. He just doesn't get it. He doesn't understand it at all.
Yeah, he loves, like you said, he loves Molly, but it's like the love is almost like people say, like, oh, he doesn't really love her, and it's like he does.
Yeah,
but it's irrelevant, because the love, there's a shell of stupid and scared and ignorant.
Yeah,
that is greed. That is covering that is preventing it from it actually mattering. And I mean, I to some extent I do agree. Like, DiCaprio's stuff is, I think, the most interesting. It's a very interesting Scorsese character, and I think it's clear, like you're alluding to, that Scorsese really struggled throughout this production to sit with what he's making. Hence the final scene where he's basically like, yeah, this is kind of like garbage, but also it's like the best. I did my best, and
it sounds like he took great care to do so in as respectful and dignifying manner as he could, and
Yep. It just like comes across the whole time. I feel like that he's trying to be, as careful and respectful as he can.
Yeah, and all that being said, I mean, it's Scorsese, and it's Thomas Shoemaker. I mean, it's, and De Niro and DiCaprio and Gladstone. I mean, it's still an incredibly made movie.
Yep.
My final thought on this is that I can't believe that anyone could possibly be a hater toward Brendan Fraser's performance in this, because like he's just like so bellowing at you. Like, no, it was he.
Yeah, and that's
so good.
I think that's the perfect casting, or the perfect portrayal of that character. Because he just immediately goes up and starts being all super hammy, and like, being all like, my client and this and that and the other, and it's very much
that is my client.
That's pretty much how he's like, the lawyer is pretty much doing, is just stomping around, making a big show, making accusations.
Distracting.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so it's not about, the argument he's making. It's just about, look at how showy, and it's all
theatrics.
appearances. Yeah, it's like the Iron Claw.
It all plays into yeah, exactly. And it plays into like obviously the scene with at the end with DiCaprio, De Niro in the cell, where De Niro's like, none of this is gonna matter. It's just another story. Like, we're gonna get away with it. Just wait. And it's like, no, no.
Nope.
But that's again, like you're saying, like the beauty of I would say like the other side of it is like the FBI coming in at the end and it not being the focus is also just like it makes you feel just the hopelessness of what's happened, which is obviously again what he wanted to portray primarily. And when the FBI comes in, it's like, great, they're gonna stop more things from happening, but a lot has already happened.
At the end of the day, and I think you could extend that probably not just to the plot of like the Osage specifically, but extend it to the experiences of literally any native community in U.S. territory over the past God knows how many hundreds at this point.
I mean, they point to the Tulsa Massacre directly.
Yeah.
So
Gladstone is fantastic. Everybody's been talking about her. She's fantastic.
He's amazing.
Yep.
DiCaprio, I think, is people maybe don't talk about him enough in this movie.
Yeah, I think
it's like one of the best performances of his career.
I think he's literally only getting better as an actor.
Yep.
Yeah, the fucking stupid face he has on the whole time.
It's hard to portray. It's hard to convincingly and interestingly portray somebody who's just dumb.
He's
just
dumb
as
bricks.
Paul
Schrader did not fuck with it.
Nope. Nope.
So anyway, that's Killers of the Flower Moon at 5. Now we're moving into the top 4. Every movie from now on, all green circles. Every broad agreement on all of these. Now we're taking a bit of a big jump points wise. 115 for number 4, which is The Holdovers.
Yeah,
well, that's glaringly apparent.
Yeah, Zach had it at 5, Sam at 7, Andrew at 9. I had it at 4.
I love The Holdovers. Golly,
Me too.
I do. I adore that movie, and it's only grown on me since I've seen it twice now, and I don't know, like people obviously call it an instant classic, and I think it 100% is. Just a very thoughtful portrayal of loneliness in America specifically, but obviously broader than that, and the approach of kind of really grounding it in the 70s or in 1970. Just the way that the director Payne is able to portray the atmosphere, where there's just this sense of melancholy but also calm.
Yep.
All, of course, very much, I mean, led by the 3 performances that are all outstanding.
Outstanding.
Like, truly cream of the crop. I love Giamatti so much in this movie. I already was like on the Divine Joy Randolph train like the first time I saw it, and the second time I was like, oh, but Giamatti is also just like, he was born to play this role. It's incredible.
An amazing debut for Dominic Sessa.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you would have thought he'd been doing this for a long time.
The story with his casting is really funny.
I don't think I know about it.
He was going to one of the schools they were shooting at for the location of the school, and they were like doing like kind of auditions from the people there, and yeah, he had never acted before.
Wow. Damn.
Yeah. No, so it's pretty unreal.
Kinda sounds like an optimal way to find someone to fill a role. Like, you just stumble into them and they're just perfect for it, and you're like, all right.
Yes.
Also, just love how. Oh, sorry.
I was just saying like in the scene where he's running away and from Giamatti, and he does like the flip. That was like all just improv. He just like, decided to flip there.
I was just gonna say, I love how this thing is shot so faithfully, like the way like 70s movies in general are, like all like the panning, like scene transitions and stuff like that. Just, I love that shit. Just injected directly in my veins.
Yeah, and it was all digital too, which is great.
That shocked me
Very-
when I
yeah,
found
it's hard
out.
to
I
believe.
couldn't believe it.
Very
Saw
convincing.
people comparing it to Mank in that process.
So I'm just saying, all you people still shooting on film, get a grip. You don't need to do that anymore. Just put a filter. Look at him. Look at Alexander
The future is
Payne.
now, old man.
We did it. No more film. We don't need it. Outdated. One thing
Absolutely. Sorry, Mark Jenkin.
Yeah, he needs to transition, get with the times.
Your kind is headed for extinction.
Yeah, one thing I'll say is I've always thought in the back of my head that if I were a rich kid, I might have thrived in these New England boarding school environments. Because that's my people. The type of person who goes to this is sort of the type of humor, the way they're acting, is very New England. It's not like specifically New England, but that's very much that sort of upper crust. The troublemaker, the upper crust troublemaker. Not really a troublemaker, but he's got a lot of money. Is just a funny demographic. There's so many movies about these types of schools because the people who make up those schools are just there's endless slow stories you can do with this type of dynamic, like like Dead Poet Society or
Yep.
among others. It's just a great
Maybe the people who attend these schools are disproportionately more likely to have access to film as an industry, but also the money to actually make stories about that kind of thing.
Well, it's
That's
also that
yeah, part of it.
sort of the funniness and being sort of in that sort of intellectual environment. They get that sort of theatrical like gravitas that just makes them very fun to make these sort of stories about. So I'll eat them up. You give me holdovers too. They hold over some more, I'll watch it even if it's trash.
Even more holdovers.
Holdovers too. Paul
again.
Giamatti strikes back.
Oh man, that's the thing. It's like Giamatti just gets to say so many like hilarious things with so many great thesaurus words. It's just like I ate that shit up. And just like again, back to Divine Joy Randolph. What an absolutely like incredible, heartbreaking performance from her. That's just like pretty understated for the most part. But
there's a certain no spoilers, a certain sequence that takes place in a certain kitchen in a certain party that just like, oh Jesus Christ.
Yep.
And it wasn't just her, though. I feel like her performance there was definitely a big part of why it worked, but also just kind of back to what you were talking about earlier about how the film's just like so melancholy and like reflects so much like loneliness throughout. Then even like a incredibly sad moment like what we were witnessing there, the fact that they could find some warmth together in this kitchen in the background of a party where everybody else is.
Yep.
I don't know. It's like scenes like that scattered throughout just really hit me. It's just so good.
Yeah, it is. And yeah, just again, like I immediately just thought of like Columbus, where it's just like if you find the right location at the right time of year, it's like so much of the work is done for you. Just the opening shots of snow, people walking the paths. Thinking of like I went to a private Christian college, and I just think of like going to chapel and all that shit. I don't know. It was like nostalgic in a way, but also just like it's a vibe. It's like it all contributes to just like the feeling, the overwhelming feeling that this movie leaves you with. Feels like a warm blanket.
Yeah, it's the classic architecture and the old New England architecture and the snow and that's just a great look. You could do anything in that environment.
Yeah,
Makes me really want to see Boston one day.
Yeah, they said. I remember reading. They said they were able to basically shoot a lot of the Boston stuff just in Boston without doing anything because quote change comes slowly to that part of the country where like not a lot has changed from the 1970s in certain parts of the place.
Yeah, all right, that's the holdovers. We're into a top 3. This is
Wondering how this is going to shake out.
What
the order is going to be.
It's interesting. This is a very close race. Number 3 is 125 points. Number 2 is 126. Number 1 is 129.
Damn.
So it's very close. Not exactly how I expected it to shake out, but this is how it shook out. So at number 3, we have Oppenheimer. Zach has it at 9.
Oppenheimer's 3?
It's because of Zach. You can direct your ire to Zach.
I fucked it.
Zach put it at 9. Sam put it at 3. Andrew at 1. I put it at 2.
Why am I expressing shock that the end result is exactly where I put it on my own list?
Yeah, it's your fault actually.
Yeah,
Oh.
I'm absolving. I'm vindicated here.
I would argue,
Josh,
maybe
where'd you say you put it?
I put it at 2.
Ah.
I mean, I can say Oppenheimer is I saw it 4 times in the theaters. Most I've ever gone to a movie to go see it. Now, they kept showing it in IMAX. I mean, what do you want me to do? That's just lives up to all the expectations you could have for it, what you could want for it.
It does.
Oh yeah.
Just it's a great movie.
to reference
So true.
what we said earlier, this is exactly why everybody should be shooting on film. Because you can get your movie to look like Chris Nolan did here with a $100 million budget, shooting, entirely on IMAX color and black and white film with practical effects.
Visual effects just weren't digital enough for me. Sorry.
I guess that's got to be it. I don't know what else would be, but it's just a movie that's firing on all cylinders. I think it's the best soundtrack of the year and some of the best music ever in a Nolan movie. I think it's his best writing, and I mean, it is based
endlessly
on like a book,
quotable.
Yes, exactly. Just an all-star ensemble cast, led by Cillian Murphy, amazing performance. But
Iron Man's in there.
Yep, and it's gonna win an award for it. It seems like, and I mean, I saw it twice. I wish I had gone more, but we saw it opening night in IMAX, Limax, or whatever. But then I had the opportunity to go see it in 70 millimeter, like true 70 millimeter IMAX, and it was like one of the most unbelievable movie theater experiences I've ever had in my entire life.
I feel if I had the chance to see it in 70 millimeter, that might have bumped it to number 1 for me. And I'm sure they'll do, honestly, because of what it is, I'm sure they'll probably do a screening again sometime in the future.
Yeah.
But
yep,
yeah,
that's what honestly was that going again and seeing it in 70 millimeter that like solidified it. Where I as soon as I like left the Science Center, I was like, yeah, I don't think that movie's gonna move all year. I don't think it's gonna drop. I don't think it's possible. And it didn't. Though for me, 1 and 2 was a really close race this year. Everything else is like a bit distance from the top 2 for me, which we haven't talked about the other one yet. So
I remember.
There you go.
Sorry. I was gonna say, I remember when the first trailer for Oppenheimer dropped, I wasn't sure if I was personally even gonna watch it, and just some unfortunate background lore for the audience. Many members of my family, including my grandfather, were Nagasaki survivors, and some of them were not survivors. So because of that, I wasn't entirely sure whether I even wanted to watch a film about Oppenheimer specifically, and is definitely part of why I've never told my mom that I watched this movie. But because it's also Nolan, I was specifically very much wondering, how are you going to depict the inevitable? Like, how are you going to depict the role of this bomb in the bombings? And I want to say avoiding spoilers, but everyone's seen Oppenheimer at this point.
Yeah.
I felt like
Yep.
the crowd scene and also like the sequence where he's kind of watching the footage of, I guess, the aftermath, the human aftermath of it, was probably the most respectful portrayal of that I think could have come from this film, in that you make the gravity incredibly clear and everybody in the audience is forced to think about the actual human toll of this creation, but without like fetishizing or exploiting the imagery of that. And so yeah, I was honestly impressed and honestly really thankful that it was portrayed in a dignified way.
Yeah, I think because it's the name of the story of the year for so many movies, is just the way you compartmentalize what you do, your juxtaposition with what other things people do. And I think Oppenheimer has the best mechanical way, or like the mechanisms of the film itself, best way of conveying this. Because Oppenheimer is obviously a super complex figure, but it tackles Oppenheimer in so many different directions. Like for example, is it his fault that they set off the bomb? He certainly feels so. But of course, it wasn't him who dropped the bomb, and they make this point. But also, there's also the thing Oppenheimer was so driven um, by this, the quantum world and pushing science
Yep.
that he wanted to make the bomb because of the science behind it, and so he wasn't thinking at all, oh, they're going to use this. But at the same time, he was thinking about it, and he got some sort of sick pleasure out of it, as like as far as some perspective, like for example, Strauss's perspective, where he's accusing Oppenheimer, of trying to be a martyr, so he doesn't have to deal with the guilt of the bomb. Instead, it focuses on something else, where he's just the guy who is a science guy. But there is also, you think of his obsession with the Bhagavad Gita, where I am become death, destroyer of worlds. You're not like, obviously I don't know Oppenheimer. He's been dead a while. I don't know what's in his head, but you wouldn't be so obsessed with that if there was not some part of you that was just driven to make this sort of destructive force, which the movie never outright says, like, blames him for it, which is why the movie is so good.
There's another sequence of the movie, or like a sequence of sequences, I guess, that I think points to that as well, Josh. And it's in the very early part, they make a passing joke about how Oppenheimer himself is Jewish.
Yep.
But, he doesn't really participate in the religiosity of it, but he is ethnically Jewish. And it makes it very clear, or at least part of his stated motives for why he wants to build this bomb is to defeat Adolf Hitler, motivated by the atrocities of the Holocaust, which, perfectly, totally understandable. But before, there is a sequence where the bomb is still being developed and created, where somebody walks up with a newspaper and is like, Hitler was just defeated, and it barely makes any passing mention. He's like, oh, all right, and it just goes back to work.
Yep.
It's like any pretense that was part of his motivation just disappears. And I think like the fleeting nature of that scene is part of what made it so powerful and really reinforced that, his motivation is not that at all, or at least not anymore.
Yeah, and that's what makes the character, the character of Oppenheimer as opposed to the real one, so interesting, is that you never really actually do get a good sense of his motivation, because if you're a real person, usually never make a decision based on pure reason. You're just kind of making decisions.
Fuck no.
You can justify it after the fact, and pretend that that's a good reason. And like, that's why you did it. Oh, I did this because I wanted to do this.
People are much more motivated by feelings than reason.
Yeah, and they're just motivated by things that are just, inscrutable, or like you can't, like, why did he poison his
Exactly.
tutor? He liked him a lot. Why did he do it? Same thing. Why did he build the bomb? He didn't have anything against, the Japanese. Why did he do it? Well, he wasn't thinking about it. He was thinking about all these different things. And he was motivated by all these different, he's.
Yeah, I mean, it reminds me. The movie that reminded me a lot of Tar, where it's like, again, it's that theme of like what it's like to be something that I can't relate to, which is what is it like to be a person that's been cursed with genius? What is it like to be somebody who's been cursed with, we'll see, but somebody who's been cursed with just like that knowledge that it seems like like that opening sequence of can you hear the music, and I was just like, this dude is like haunted by these visions. Like, it's not like necessarily something he wanted to have to deal with. It's just like he has it and now he has to figure out what to do with it. And obviously the themes of the movie of cause and effect and chain reactions, but also paradox, which is a contrast to that. Those are some of the things I loved about the movie.
And that's, for me, was what made Teller such an interesting side character, because I feel like all the side characters are really sort of just reflections of Oppenheimer. Because Teller was just like, well, built the big bomb, which Oppenheimer, it's that impulse which even gave Oppenheimer the drive to build the bomb, was because he wanted to build the bomb. So there's so much that can be said, which is why I think this is Nolan's, masterpiece in terms of character, because it's one of the very few examples I can think of a movie like this where you're clearly trying to convey a complicated man who is thinking about very many things and actually trying to get into his head, um, and actually being able to convey what is going on in his head and that kind of psyche. Very, very difficult to do, and it's one of like the only ones where I'm like convinced.
Yeah, and I think it's something where it's like the setup of the hearing and all that. I mean, it's that phrase of like who would want to answer for their life,
Yep.
who would want to have to like justify everything that they did, which is obviously, I mean, there's obviously religions that say that is what we all have to do at certain points. But it's that like chilling piece of like I wouldn't want to have to answer for everything I did in my life either. Like it's just like we all do shit impulsively that we don't know why we did it. Part of the mystery of being a person.
Yep. So there we go, number 3. So now when I reveal number 2, we're gonna know what number 1 is. But number 2 coming in at 126 points is Perfect Days. Zach had it at 2, Sam had it at 2, Andrew had it at 4, I had it at 6.
I love this movie.
It's literally just what a movie.
It's amazing.
Because I mean, this is just like the perfect formula for, you know, a good movie. You know, I'm just a big fan of, you know, movies where you just kind of like, isn't life so beautiful? You know, coming after Oppenheimer. And it's so true. Like one thing that I particularly noticed in the movie, just recurring moments in the movie, is because most of the movie is just him kind of looking around. Is that he just constantly looks at things and just looks at like the way the light is reflecting off of the weird metal of the roof, the way the light reflects on all the different weird bathroom designs, and it's all he's doing is just he's looking, he's taking a picture, he's looking, he's thinking about it, he's got his cassettes, and it's just literally just a treat.
Yeah, I mean, I think like obviously like the most quote unquote out there pieces of the movie are these like little reprieves between the days where he's having these, I'm assuming, dreams. Of these black and white sequences where there's these meldings of images. You know,
Which is
trees, all these
absolutely
things.
stunning.
Yeah.
It looks amazing. You're just enjoying and taking it all in, but it's also like I think it speaks to. I don't think this movie has like an intense like commentary on generations and things like that, but the piece of just like slight contrast between what it means to be present with what's around you, to take it in, and then to allow that to inform your dreams and your internal world as opposed to being on a phone all day, and how that impacts differently to some extent. I mean, the whole theme of presence to it, I think, is just obviously huge, and a big contrast in the movie is the ability to just be where you are.
One thing about Hirayama, the main character, is that he kind of reminded me a little bit of myself, but also more notably of my grandmother. Not to make it about myself, but my grandmother, for context, was born in a little mining town in Kyushu, far away from like any coastal border. It was kind of rare for a Japanese town to be like that, just like way inland. And again, poor town, not a lot of job opportunities or anything like that. You'd think that she'd want to leave, but she spent her entire adult life there and spent the overwhelming majority of her adult life as a laundry woman. I think sometime around like 1819, she became a laundry woman for a local, I guess, laundry service or whatever, and did that job well into her 60s before finally, like, scoliosis back problems made it so she couldn't anymore. And much like Hirayama, she had a very, very similar routine every day. She took immense pride in doing this work, which could be seen as a very low form of work in the way that Hirayama's work is, you know, like literally a public toilet cleaner could be seen as a very low form of work that you would relegate to the others. But she took extraordinary pride in it, took great pride in being good at it, and at no point ever did she want for anything more. And when I would talk to my grandmother with her about like the kinds of things that she valued in life, she would talk about how happy she was to just go out and walk several, I guess, kilometers to her job every day for decades, and then do the work with the people she knew who also worked there for decades. And then afterwards, maybe just walk to the grocery store and pick up some things, or walk up the hill and look at the trees and the bamboo, or maybe visit her sister before coming home, making dinner, being with her kids, and, you know, such as life every day, and at no point did she ever make it sound like she wanted anything more or that she saw it as a less life than anyone else's. And I
Yeah.
feel like it relating Hirayama's experience to my grandmother's made me kind of like really happy in a way to see that somebody else out there can live a life that perhaps others like Hirayama's sister could look at and see as low, or like, what happened to you? How could you settle for this in life and not see it as settling at all,
Yep.
but to take pride in it and to see that as something, thus a genuinely beautiful way to live in your brief time on earth. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's part of why I found this particular film to be so incredible.
No, I think that's cool, and I feel as I was watching it, it's like I loved the film's kind of portrayal of the fact that that like the generational piece of like having the girl in the van being able to like appreciate the music and how it sounds on tape, but also like that piece of like it's hard. I think it's harder now than ever to maintain a life like that, especially as somebody who's birthed into the world as it is now versus somebody who was older and has had to adapt to the inevitable changing world around them. But like I think about like the scene with like Spotify. It's like Spotify, where's that
So
store?
funny.
And in an American movie, 100%, they would have a scene where he would go back and he would try Spotify and get on his fucking whatever phone, and he'd be like, "Whoa, look at all these songs! I can." And it's like in this movie, it's like no, like
It's never mentioned again.
the ability to maintain that kind of a life of contentment with what you have requires an ability to ignore all the opportunities and things that are trying to be sold to you as more convenient, um, wider, more accessible ways of living life that are also pull you out of the present moment, and make it harder to appreciate each day's, but only to focus on the things that you don't have or the things that you want, which is obviously like a key part of the coworker character who's like I really want this girlfriend, or all these pieces where it's there's this longing. And I watched the movie and it's like I long for the kind of perspective that the main character can have, and I feel how hard it is to actually have that these days, in the world as it is.
He was not selling those tapes.
No.
Fuck no.
Till he had to.
Did not matter what they were offering him to.
Well, one thing I'll say is about sort of, I guess, the big takeaway from the movie is that, I mean, to put it like reductively, people forget that you are an object in space, which goes into what like Zach was saying. Like, if you play your cassettes and you take your film and you keep your photos in a box, it's a much different way. It's a much more, instinctively intuitive way of living your life than if all your music is on Spotify, all your pictures are on your phone. You just don't have that tangible connection to, everything. It's just, it literally exists just in your head, sort of the spatial element. And sort of the, one of the major issues, I think, of, say, modern life, and how it sort of affects the way people, just behave, just like literally with everything, is that so much stuff is not actually a physical thing anymore. So
Yep.
your own little intuitive sense of what things are and how things work is just so busted because
How to relate to it.
it's all just in your head, which is something that is, going away, which is sad because, that I think that is a major contributor to sort of the, discontent of a lot of people today, is that
100%.
you just don't really, just at sort of a fundamental level, like the actual existence is just a little bit, it's harder to get your head around when so much of the stuff you have to deal with is just nebulous streams of thought or text or a picture on a phone. So it is something that's going away. And another thing, obviously I've not worked as a janitor, but I did I worked at a shop making signs, custom signs. And what I would do is for the whole shift, I would just sand the edges of the sign so it would be nice and smooth and it would look good for the, customer. And, I did that very enjoyable job for several months, stopped it for a few months. When I came back, because I was gone, they didn't have anyone doing the sand anymore. They decided Well, nobody, it's not really that important that the edges of the board are sanded. It makes it look better, but it doesn't actually affect the sign. So when I came back, they didn't want me to do it anymore because it was a waste of time and money. And I remember just being very, disconcerted and like a little disappointed, and not just I wouldn't be able to do that anymore, but that sort of personal, touch and care that I
Yeah.
was putting into those products. They're like, no, we don't need to do that anymore, so we don't do it. And then basically completely destroyed my job satisfaction because I wasn't doing that anymore. And I thought it was, such a nice thing that I was putting so much time, effort, and care into, making a product that someone at the end of the day, would use, but they wouldn't think about like who made it. It's a product to them. But like same thing, similar to how he would clean the toilet and all that. You never really think about the guy who goes in and cleans your toilet and all that, or think what he has to do. Like think of all the little keys he had, and he had his setup, he had his all his different tools, and he was going in and like he had he had it on lock. Um, and you don't think about that, but that kind of thing really goes a huge long way to making your own life so
Mhm.
nice. And just a little disappointing to see so many of those things just get cut away because we don't need to spend all our money on adding this touch and adding that touch. We can get rid of it, and it's just a huge thing that we lose, which is
Those little touches that make, things good.
yeah, like
Yeah.
just like nice, like to have that little thing that's going away. So very nice.
Also, like to add, and I don't know if I've told everybody here this, but I think it's really interesting that Winders like doesn't speak Japanese.
Yeah.
Nope.
I like read about how they shot this movie in like a very short amount of time. I think like 2 weeks or something, and he communicated with everybody on set with gestures. That's it. It's just like operating off pure vibes.
Yeah.
It's
I mean,
It's like pretty
yeah.
pretty astounding.
Incredible
just such a
performance, obviously, at
universal
the
story
center.
too.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly.
And of course, Koji Yakusho is so he's an incredible actor. Um,
Yeah.
and it's one of
Yeah.
those things. Oftentimes, it is difficult to actually gauge a foreign language performance because you don't get to hear the words. But in this, um, you don't get to hear the actual meaning of the words. Um, but in this, he's not too much of a talker. He doesn't speak so much, but you can just see in his
No.
face, the way he carries himself, everything. It just completely conveys that sort of grace that you would imagine from his character.
Yeah. It's funny because I was distinctly like, I think the movie has kind of a first half and a second half to it, where like the second half of the movie almost kind of has to interrogate the first half, right? Um, where the first half is like this kind of idyllic daily life, it's perfect, and then the second half is like, here are some hiccups. This is life, and it's all kind of supposed to be kind of felt as part of the whole of the same process. But in the first half of the movie, I was very much sitting there like, I want to know what this guy's thinking and feeling. Like when this guy's just sitting around appreciating life, like what's actually going through his head. Because again, as my experience as a human being, I'm like, yeah, I can sit and try to be present, and I do. And also, there's a lot I have to manage in order to do that. And I
Yep.
appreciated how the second half of the movie, pretty much on cue, was like, this guy is managing shit. This guy does have stuff that comes up for him that's hard. And again, the ending of the movie just really brings it home in that beautiful combination of laughter and crying and the waves of feelings that are part of the rhythms of life.
Yeah.
This guy isn't special. He's just going through it like best he can.
Yep. You ever see your girl with another guy and go to the store and buy 3 beers and a pack of cigarettes?
Play Shadow Tag.
Yep.
And one, I'll leave another comment on my own personal Mr. Hirayama was whoever, because the copy that I watched I didn't get to see it in theater, so I had to watch a screener of it, and it was a Serbian or Slovakian screener or something, and it had hard coded subtitles on it. And the guy who made the subtitles for this, because it doesn't have an official home release yet with officially available subtitles, he went in and translated the whole thing. But on top of that, he put in a background for the subtitles of black, so it would black out the hard coded subtitles. So I didn't see him the whole time. and that's that kind of great great touch we get from our pirate community.
I was gonna say, wait, you didn't see this? Wait, how did you?
It was out somehow in Serbia, and that's the copy I watched because I needed to make sure I got it.
Wait, so you didn't see this movie legally?
Speaking of attention to detail.
Yeah, there's a few movies on here that I don't want to speak on how
Wait
I
a
saw
minute,
them.
hold up. Wait a minute.
All right, so we have come to the final movie.
It's time.
It's
fucking
time.
go. Let's fucking go.
129 points. I'm sorry I spoiled it earlier. It's Wish.
Yep.
None of us actually saw it.
It's Wish.
I just love how it connects the Disney animated universe.
I love universes.
God, make every narrative interconnected.
Especially ones with dog shit animation and pook-ass songs and terrible story. And I mean, I didn't see it, but I'm gonna say that's all true anyway.
Yep. So coming in actually at number 1, 129 points, is John motherfucking Wick, Chapter 4.
As I live and breathe.
You got Zach put it at 4, Sam put it at 4, Andrew put it at 2, and I put it at 1.
I did for John Wick what I also should have done for 65, where I was like, I'm just gonna put it at 4.
I was
Somebody please rank this movie at number 1.
and I did it. I think I was surprised it ended up at number 1. I was thinking it was going to be Oppenheimer, Zach, but this
Whatever.
was. I mean, this movie was out of body experience in the theater.
It's transcendent.
I literally could not believe it.
It was shocking.
Because I love action movies. Love seeing dudes shoot each other. You know, not
Yeah.
not really,
Yeah.
not really in a movie.
Oh.
And I think this, you know, that Chad Stahelski is, he is Mr. Hariyama for action movies. He just loves the history and the you know, it's not just a job for him. He loves the movies. He loves all movies, and he put it in and made the most just entertaining movie in a grip.
It's one of those movies where you just like, I mean, there's a few movies on this list like this, but this movie where it's like, why don't more movies look like this? What is stopping you from just
Absolutely.
lighting scenes
Beautiful.
with bright reds and greens and oranges and just like what's the problem?
It's like pushing the envelope with color in this movie. In every shot.
It's the great thing with John Wick movies is I don't even have a camera on. I don't even have the shirt on, but my brother got me a shirt that said warning, we'll talk about Buster Keaton at any given moment. And this is just so true because Buster Keaton is, you know, the greatest. You know, he invented so much of the physical cinematic language of movies. And John Wick is so heavily indebted to that physical comedy of Buster Keaton with the true real stunts, physical comedy that's just plain funny. It would be funny to anybody. You could show some of this stuff to like a fucking caveman and they'd laugh. You could show it to someone 1,000 years from now and they'd laugh, I assume. It's just intuitively so funny, entertaining, physical, and it's like some of the stuff in this movie is like brand new. It has never been, you've never seen something like it before.
Hotline Miami shit.
Yeah, that is ridiculous. And
it is absurd. I love movies where like I'm not gonna like try and name other ones like this, but like when there's like a kind of a cat and mouse thing going on, and then between two parties, and then there's a third party that's kind of doing their own thing that's also trying to weave in there, and that's where you get the tracker, with the dog, which is such a great character, like just a great added piece to this movie, because it's both cool. It's great that you get to get cool dog shit, like the third one.
Plays the role perfectly.
Like just this guy who has this like vested interest in driving up the price of John Wick's head, but then also needs to be the one who takes him out. It's just a really cool dynamic, as like a third party character that has his own kind of place in the midst of this. And then you get the perfect, like, one of those movies where they really decide to take John Wick's character and strip it down to its bones. Obviously remove so much of his dialogue and make him a very kind of stoic, quiet character. But that just works so well for this movie. As somebody who has just this like immense task, this journey that he has to go undertake, this crucible.
Yeah, it's
And they got Donnie fucking Yen in this thing, man.
Yeah, they did.
Yes, sir.
And it's fucking sick.
Hey, blind man, do your job. And he did.
Oh, he did. He did his job.
I feel like Donnie Yen is like the most entertaining person to watch just move. Like
He's so charismatic. It's insane.
he's got the charisma. He's got the God. He's fast. He can like move.
Yeah, it's
he can
unreal.
punch so fast. He can hit people with his cane.
Right.
And another thing, with this movie is the music, because
Yeah.
that was the
Oh my god.
two of the most shocking needle drops I have ever heard in a movie. Because of course it takes place in France, so like we gotta get some French electronic music. And the first one they drop is "Hate or Glory" by Saffelstein, which I have literally
Genius.
in my head many times. I have just been like, "Oh, wouldn't it be so cool to play this in an action movie and just see people get brutalized?" And I thought about that so many times. Like, would this be so good in an action movie? And there you go, you get in an action movie in fucking John Wick. And then later on, you get Genesis by Justice.
Yeah.
Which is literally
Absolute shell shocker.
fucking, it's my favorite song of all time. I couldn't believe it because my brother was sitting 2 seats down from me, and when Hate or Glory played, I like turned and looked at him, and we both looked at each other like, "Whoa!" And then when Genesis played, he like jumped forward in his seat and looked right at me, and so did I. We were like, "No way!" It like that was just like, it was like
I can't imagine.
anything I could have wanted. It just completely went above and beyond, which was, even now sitting here, I was gonna watch it again before, just so it would be in my mind, so I could talk about it more. I didn't have the time to do it. Even just sitting here right now, I'm like, damn, what a movie.
Yeah. Same.
I literally just pointed and did like the Reddit Cooper
Literally.
face like both times in the
That's
theater. I was
so
like,
Jack.
oh, I love that song.
That shit had
So
me
true.
mouth open. No way.
Semi-related to the music, I felt like Rina Sawayama. I was like shocked by how good she was.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was
No,
great.
she's great.
Never
Yeah,
acted
I wasn't
before.
expecting that. I was like, oh damn.
And I read that they cast her because they literally just like her music. That's how I found her. And she's
Seems
like
the way to do
brings
it.
all the physicality that like everybody else brings to the movie. And again, it's her first time. And then she ended up doing the song for the credits, which is like a great track as well.
So true.
Yeah, that's the song.
And there's
Scott Adkins,
God,
Scott Adkins,
amazing
Scott
character in this
Adkins.
movie.
Scott Adkins in the outfit that Sammo Hung wore in SPL Killzone. Give me a break. Like only Chad Stahelski would cook something
Literally.
like that up.
Literally, he was in it. Oh my god! Yeah,
It's
incredible.
unbelievable.
And I say the moment that I realized that we were watching maybe the greatest movie of all time was in the fight between Scott Adkins, aka
Yeah.
Killa, versus Keanu,
it's
and there was
insane.
specifically the moment when I think John Wick is lying on the ground and Scott Adkins is coming up to him, and he does this like turn. He reaches his hands sort of up in front of him like he's about to grab, and he does this little turn. And it was straight out of a video game. Like if in like Smash Bros or any fighting game, when your character like turns left and right, they're doing like a quarter turn because they still want the character to face each other. And just the way he
Yeah.
turned was straight out of a video game. And suddenly I was like, this is video game. Because there's so many movies.
This is video game.
So many movies like this year have actually finally sort of connected with the actual experience of playing a video game. I would say like The Killer, very similar. I say The Flash as well. But this was like the summation of like what is actually good about video games, and you convert that sort of experience and make it a movie. It was like that moment I was like, holy shit, this is like this is gold. Like they found fucking El Dorado.
Yeah. On the approach to this story, this just popped into my head, but I was thinking of again of like Mad Max Fury Road, where it's
Yep.
like just make it very straightforward, make it like a singular goal that the character has to focus on and fixate on. Again, kind of like in this crucible sense, and of course, many people have talked about the stairs sequence. It's kind of this incredible, beautiful
Buster Keaton.
Sisyphean
Yep.
shit. But just even how like you think of like the shots in with I don't know if they're in a museum. I think they are, where there's just these massive historical paintings
Yep.
hanging on the wall
Yeah.
as Ian McShane's character just walks past, just setting the scene. And so many of the shots are trying to evoke that same kind of grand, like these moments of these characters just kind of going through this huge spiritual battle. Obviously, like the duel sequence at the end is like the epitome of this.
Yep.
Of this just wide side shot, two characters in the frame going at it. Yeah,
It's just like
It's
the ultimate.
incredible.
It's the ultimate action movie. It's got everything that you would want from an action movie. You know, it's got the very simple. You know, the story's pretty simple, but it's just great path. You know, to stick all the action scenes on. You know, it's not too common to get an action movie where the action is the story. Is so difficult
Yes.
to do. It's oftentimes you get an action movie. It's like, all right, action scene is happening here. All right, now there's a talking scene. But in this, you know, the action tells the story. And
The genius of what the other three movies have done
yep,
in setting up this world, this playground, where it's like it makes sense that the only way they can even move through this entire process is through shooting people and kicking people and punching them, blocking bullets with your bulletproof suit. It's awesome.
yeah. One great thing is that Chad Stahelski has said in interviews, you know, he very much loves like hidden worlds and underground and like secret societies and the different sort of those little insular cultures that happen when you're in like a society and all that. And he really likes to convey that and show like how these different things, you know, how these different things sort of come to play in like a very fun and entertaining way. And he does that with all these different little societies and all their different little things. And it's just so fun. And that's another something I very much like is, you know, concealing and revealing and all that, just like he does. So it's just like someone was reaching deep into my, you know, cranium, just yanking out all my ideas and making it for me. It's like I didn't have to say do this. He just somehow knew exactly what I wanted.
Such a
Yeah.
good movie.
It's
Yeah.
fucking
Unbelievable.
It's a rare thing. I mean, I think, you know, especially as we have gotten more into the world of historical action, just like how action has progressed over the years, the decades, it is just like such a treat to watch something like this that cares about that brings it in to the modern world, the modern filmmaking. Good shit.
yeah. I love seeing people beat each other up.
Hell
You know,
yeah.
give me, you know, say what you want.
The best way to solve your problems.
You just send John Wick. Send the fucking boogeyman.
The Baba Yaga.
Well,
That's all of them, right?
Unless anyone has any final thoughts that they want to add that was skipped over earlier,
Yeah.
or maybe not time. I have only one addition, and if you want to even edit this into what we were saying previously, go for it. My one addition was actually a thought for Boy and the Heron. I just wanted to make sure I said that I think it was an absolutely horrible idea for them to localize the title into Boy and the Heron for the US
Yeah.
release. It should have remained
Yep.
Kimi tachi
How
wa
do they
dou
live?
ikiru ka, which translates loosely into how do you all live? And like literally like how do you all choose to conduct your lives? Which is the thesis statement of the movie, and I feel like by changing the title, you wildly warped people's expectations of what the narrative was going to be going in.
yeah,
Mhm.
you're
That's my one,
you're like
Boy
conveying
and
my
it.
Animal
one
Friend.
final thought.
It's like conveyed as like a fable or like as Aesop, and then
Mhm.
you don't get that moral
Exactly.
at the end, and you're like, well, what the hell did I
Huh.
just watch?
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly.
That was my only final passing thought. If anyone
good-
else wants to add their
comment.
own. Yeah. Or anything else we may have discussed previously.
You know, I'm looking at all these movies and I'm like, damn.
A lot of good movies came out this year. Very good,
Yep.
very good year. Seems like this upcoming year, we'll see how it goes as far as like what the art house world ends up providing us with, but seems like as far as big releases, we're gonna be left wanting.
It's
Oh,
not
we
every
got the
day
big
where
one.
you're thinking to yourself, it's like, which one am I gonna put above John Wick? Oppenheimer, Perfect Days.
Yeah,
Oh,
probably not. But yeah, well, it's been good recapping a big year of movies. A lot of good ones, few bad ones.
Less bad ones than last year, I would say.
Yeah.
Yeah, less bad
as
ones
well.
than last year. I would agree. Again, some surprises like Mario, which seemed like it was going to be a surefire dud. Yeah. So, unless anybody has final thoughts to recap the year, this has been the Ubumfa Pod 2023 in review. We'll see if we do another one.
Yeah.
You never know.
Yeah.
All I'll say to close this out is that when you have movies like Tom Cruise in them, you can't lose.
Amen.
So true.
Think up there, you're dead.